Yes, indeed. It's another Saturday night, therefore, another Saturday night shoot the breeze. Before I get into anything, I want to make sure you guys hit the like button for me. Hit the like button as you enter. Share the show on your social media. Let people know what you're tuned into on this good Saturday night. I want to thank everyone who participated last week when Jacadero hosted. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Jacadero at the helm. I want to thank everyone who will participate in tonight's show, and those of you who listen to the playback. If you do listen to the playback, please drop a comment. Let us know what city you're in or what country you're in, and ask the panelists a question or two. That would be appreciated. You know what it is. I like to come on here before we start the show officially and let you guys know what we're discussing tonight. Tonight, we're going to start with a lesson on the Strait of Hormuz. I know you guys have been hearing about it. It's been on the docket to discuss for about 2 weeks now. We haven't gotten to it, but we're going to start the show with that tonight. A lesson on the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to also address this topic that's been on the docket for 2 weeks. Are you more of a stabber or dancer? Which one is more practical, and what is the end goal for both? We're going to discuss it tonight. We're going to talk about was the UN the best available platform to implement the resolution? And we know what resolution, it was a big topic this week, to talk about the grave ill of slavery. And I'm actually going to kind of join two topics together for that, as well as the next topic. Someone said this might derail tonight's show, but it seems clear that Ghana is part of the encircling process of surrounding the AES, which is interesting that the president, Mahama, was at the UN talking about slavery being categorized as the gravest sin. Lastly, we're going to follow up but we're going to play off of a prompt that you guys discussed with Jacadero last week called Heaven Sent. And we're going to discuss something about that again tonight. Again, make sure to hit the like button, share the show to your peoples, let people know what you're tuned into on this fine Saturday night. I'm going to start the show officially at this time. And on the other side, I'm going to drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as introduce any and all of my panelists. You guys who are in the chat early, I see Webb is out there saying, peace, family, looking forward to the discussion. Daily Affirmation by Pauline is saying, good evening. Black Steel says, good evening. I'm en route, so we look forward to you arriving. Anthony McPhail was out here earlier. Sorry. Anthony McPhail says, Muhammad, the Trojan horse, who was working for the Western powers to bring the Sahel alliance to an end, pretending to be a Pan-Africanist, but no Pan-Africanist allows Western military on the soil. Man, I hope my brother Anthony joins us during the discussion tonight. Comments ready from you guys. Good to see all of you. We're going to start the show officially now, and on the other side, I'll introduce any and all of my panelists, as well as drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, so do stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAC Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Make sure you're also tuned in to the BBN Network. That's Brother Bakari. Make sure you're tuned in to Consider Cheek, Rum in the Bush. And make sure you tuned in to Kofi, the Black Critic. He had a great live the other night. And make sure you're tuned into the Forecast Radio. I have in my hand right now, I forgot to create a graphic for it. My apologies, Forecast. But I have in my hand right now a hardback copy of his book, The History of Racism, A Guide to White Supremacy. You guys look up that title on Amazon. You can get the Kindle version, you can get the hard copy. I like tactile. I like to be able to hold a book, highlight parts, make notes if possible. So I got the hardback, but you can get the Kindle copy as well. Again, The History of Racism, A Guide to White Supremacy. Look up that book. Make sure to support that brother. It's always good to see when conscious black folks put out different types of work, books, lecture series, you name it, television shows, etc., movies, etc. So make sure to support that brother. Support everyone on the network, especially support the matron as well. The matron does a great job. As Buana calls it, a yeoman's job, but I'll say it as a great job of doing these readings, and it'll be great to see her have more of a crowd. It'll be great to hear that she's being supported by the listeners. Her channel, if you're not familiar, I do think she changed it from original. Matrons in the audience, she could let us know. But her channel is at R, the letter R, Matron, RMATRON. Make sure to subscribe to her today and give her your support weekly. D Webb and them have been off for a little while, but in the chat you can see his comment. He says he's officially trying to come back this year, locking in an interview with an expat, hopefully. Try to drop an interview at least once a month. So we look forward to that, D Webb. We welcome it. And thanks for the update. The matron says, thank you so much. Yeah, that's her handle right there, at R Matron. Can't make it no simpler than that. Make sure you guys are subscribed to her channel. My first panelist has arrived tonight. That'll be Buana. Buana, how are you this week?
I'm good. How are you, Coco?
I'm good, sir. I'm good.
Yeah. Anthony, Anthony just told us, all of us, to do our homework, because I was feeling all good about Muhammad until he put that message up, and it kind of really kind of turned me around. So I have to do more homework on Muhammad and his politics in Ghana. But I hope everyone is well, all the brothers and sisters who are about to come on tonight, and respect you, Koku.
Yes, sir. Respect you as well. We're gonna discuss Muhammad a little bit in the third prompt tonight. So we're gonna touch on that stuff tonight. I'll just say this quickly. I was surprised somewhat by the blowback he received for his address at the UN. But what I was mostly surprised was no one really brought up what Anthony brought up. And I found that very interesting. A lot of people was, we have this FBA ADOS stuff, so that came up in terms of reparations and, the accusations that Africans trying to undermine, blah, blah, blah. But I was surprised no one's talking about what Ghana is doing, inviting in the West, the Western powers, to set up shop, so to speak, to kind of undermine the AES. But we'll talk about it tonight. In fact, you know what? Let's get right into it. I guess I didn't set this up, but it'll be quick. Let's get right into Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, a lesson on the Strait of Hormuz. This came with a link that we're going to hear from this Professor Zhang individual. You guys can see my screen. So we'll take a listen and then we will discuss it.
So this is a map. And this map, even if you don't really know the war, even if you don't know the participants, even if you don't know the weaponry, this map will tell you exactly how this war will progress. All right, so some certain things to keep in mind about this map. This is what we call this area. People can swim across it. It's really, really narrow, okay? This small area, guys, it's called the Strait of Hormuz. All right? And it's important because it's really the center of the world. This one area is the nexus, the pivot of the world. Let me explain why. First of all, from the GCC, you have 20% of all the world's oil flowing through this narrow strait. Where does it go, guys? It goes to Asia, India, Pakistan, South Korea, China, Japan. India depends on 60% of its oil from this area. China depends on 40%. Japan, 75%. Prime Minister Takaichi of Japan has said that, listen, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, we will run out of oil in about 8-9 months. The entire Japanese economy would collapse in 8-9 months if the Strait of Hormuz were to close. And guess what? The Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? So we can expect that the entire global economy will suffer greatly over the next few months. All right, so that's point number 1. Point number 2 is, okay, so the GCC sends oil across the Strait of Hormuz, and what do they get back in return? Food, guys. All right, so people don't appreciate the GCC, but it is really the linchpin of the American empire. Because what is the American empire? The American empire is the petrodollar. All right? The idea of the petrodollar is this. The US dollar is worth nothing. It's only valuable when people want it. But the GCC says that if you want oil from us, you have to pay us in US dollars. Okay? Then that is the basis of the value of the US dollar. So, if the GCC collapses, the American economy and the American empire both collapse at the same time. The problem, though, is that GCC is an artificial construct of empire. It does not exist naturally. Why? Because there's no food, there's no oil, no water. Okay, guys? No food, no water. So these cities are able to grow in the millions because of all these petrodollars flowing in. If you close off the Strait of Hormuz, there's no food coming in, right? They're all going to starve. How much food does the GCC get from overseas? 80%. 80% of all the food it consumes comes from overseas, that it imports. It doesn't grow by itself, it imports. All right? So the Strait of Hormuz is really key. And again, the Iranians will close it in order to strangle the global economy and therefore bankrupt the American empire. All right. Second thing you will notice is these mountains. These mountains is what we call Iran. All right, this is Iran. This is GCC. Okay, this is not a fair matchup, right? Because these are mountains. And what can you do in mountains? Well, you can hide rocket bases. You can hide drone bases. You can hide missiles. And that's the entire Iranian offensive strategy, all right? From here, they can hide missiles and drones from which to attack the GCC. And what are they attacking? They're attacking three things, right? They're attacking American military bases. American military bases. That's number one. Okay. Is it possible for the Americans to defend against these attacks? The answer is no. They're not. It's not. It's the silliest thing in the world. You have all these bases in the Middle East, but you cannot defend them against the Iranians. That's kind of strange. Okay, but that's number one. Number two is oil and energy. How hard is it to blow up an oil field with a drone? Not hard at all. Can you defend these oil fields? No, you cannot. All right. Number three, and this is most important, is water. Okay. You guys don't know this, but the GCC has little access to fresh water. So the only way that it can produce water is what we call desalination plants, okay? These factories that take salt water and then through an electrochemical process, turn it into fresh water for the population to use. 60% of the water supply in the GCC comes from desalination plants, okay? 60%. Is it hard to blow up a desalination plant using a drone? The answer is, it's very easy. You understand? Okay? So you have this absurd situation where Iran is a mountain fortress where it can hide its offensive capacity, and the GCC, it's just this desert, this flat desert, and it is exposed to attack, and there's nothing it can do about it. Okay? So at any point in this war, the Iranians can choose to just destroy the entire GCC, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. Okay, but Iran also has a weakness, okay? And this is fundamental. So Iran also has, so for the longest time, they suffered a drought issue. Okay, just climate change. And so what the plan of the Israelis and Americans is destroy the water supply of the Iranians. Because the fortress, it is a mountain fortress, but it can also be a mountain prison as well, where people are trapped inside with no access to water. Okay, so what we're going to see right now, we're already seeing attacks on civilian infrastructure, hospitals. In the future, you'll see attacks on water supply, on dams, on reservoirs, on power plants. The point, the idea is to make Iran so inhabitable that the people will have to rebel against the people, or there'll be a refugee crisis in Iran. Okay? So as you can see from this map, this war, it is the end of the world. Okay? Both sides have the potential to destroy each other. It's really a question of how far do they want to go. All right? We can also say this is almost a game of chicken. Okay? We can blow each other up. How far do you want to go? And the problem is this. The problem is that the Iranians are Shia, which believes in martyrdom. And you've killed the religious leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. So they're willing to go very, very far. The GCC countries are Muslim, but they're materialistic. They love money. And also, most of the population are expatriates, foreigners. 90% of Dubai are foreigners. Guess what's going to happen if they suffer? They're going to run away. Okay? So this is not a fair matchup. The big question that people have is, first of all, are the Americans going to use ground troops? Because the only way that you can defeat Iran is by using ground troops, okay? That's a big question we'll look at in the next few weeks. Will America send its army, 500,000, 2 million soldiers to topple the government? Okay, that's question number one. Question number two, nuclear weapons. If you're losing a war, would you choose to use nuclear weapons? Okay, that's another big question that we have, okay? Now, another big question that we have is who gets involved? Because this situation is so dire that Europe, okay, specifically Germany, France, and Britain are talking about entering this war. And guess what? If that happens, it is possible that Russia and China will also enter this war on the side of the Iranians. This is World War III, okay? Because of the importance of the Strait of Hormuz, because of the importance of the Middle East, everyone has to get involved at some point.
Everyone has to get involved at some point. He kept mentioning the GCC. I don't know if everyone is up on that. That's the Gulf Cooperation Council. That has about 6 countries in it. A lot of them we've heard about before: Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. I think he mentioned the Arab Emirates. So Bahrain. So those are the countries he's talking about in that kind of desert region over there. But Iran has a interesting setup there, and I really wonder what they're ultimately going to do about their religious leader being killed. Sister Cheryl's in the chat. She says the U.S. already has 10,000 soldiers there now. Are they in Iran or nearby to Iran? And then she says the draft is coming. Yeah, if you were paying attention to the news, they raised the draft age. The maximum age was 35, and they've now raised it to 42. That kind of tells me that there's some desperation going on there. Well, I mean, what 40-year-old you trying to get to go to war, man? Like, it tells me there's some desperation there. But the funny thing is, for all that America does, and they initiated this on behalf of Israel and this, that, and the other. It's shocking to me that folks would still even want to go and fight a war for America, which is probably why the draft age was raised. Cheryl says they already raised the enlistment age of Army back up to 42, I believe. They did this during the Iraq War. It's more targeting prior enlisted. Oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess, yeah. They're trying to get people who were enlisted before to come back. Okay. Buana, what should we really take from this whole lecture from Professor Zhang about the Strait of Hormuz? How does this affect, because if you notice, he didn't really talk about Africa. How does this affect us Africans?
Well, it affects, let me first start here. It'll affect the Africans in the West. We had a discussion last week on the possibility of America going to war and with that, the indirect consequences. This guy said if the American economy crashes, and the American economy is based on the petrodollar. He explained this in this video. And these guys they're not waging a war based on brute force. They're going after the American economy, which is the petrodollar. And if that crashes, the things that people are able to purchase cheaply, you will see a phenomenal cost go up. Like how Zimbabwe had inflation and all the things that happened there. You'll see a phenomenal cost. And now you're seeing when you put out the immigrants, well, the so-called labor, the cheap labor, who used to be in America to pick fruits for less than nothing. You're seeing the cost rise to levels that you didn't see before. Imagine when gas prices rise now, and how that affects you going to work every day. These things are gonna happen, and even so with energy, the energy supplies. You cutting on your light and turn off your light. Now Trump says, "Well, we don't need these people," but this is just bluster. This is just bluster. Because people don't understand the American dollar is tied to oil. When Nixon took the American dollar off gold in the 1970s and replaced it with the petrodollar. People don't understand that all these things are connected. You cannot live in the world. You cannot live in the world by yourself. There is a reason why American economy is the American economy. Is the American economy with the help, aid, and assistance via other countries and the natural resources that it extracts from other countries. And I think that sometimes the typical American does not understand the international implications of what happens in the world, because sometimes some American people think in a very insular way, like they are the center of the world, not realizing the clothes, the material, the gas, and so many other things are imported into the United States. So all these so-called international things have international implications. So the Africans in the Western world will suffer because of it. Now the continental Africans, they are deciding to do different kinds of things. So I can't really speak to that in particular. But I certainly know the Africans in the Western world, Caribbean people, people in South America and West and North America, even in Canada, has to get ready for these kinds of implications. Brother Bakari, he's a big prepper, talking about what could happen if certain things go awry. And the people don't see these things because they're so busy with the 8 hours a day, not realizing that these international wars and things of that nature have unintended consequences. But they will feel it. They will feel the pinch. Right now, gas here is almost at $6. And I'm just waiting to see when that shoots up, because if Trump decides to continue in the way that he's going right now, imagine gas at $10 a gallon. Imagine that. I could never imagine that. But it could go there. It could go there. And when you kill Khomeini, and see, people who they don't, let me put it in a religious context, some Western minds might understand. If the Pope was murdered by a country, the Pope, because a lot of people are Catholics in the Western world, if the Pope was murdered, imagine the outrage if the Pope was murdered. This is the equivalent to the Ayatollah Khomeini and how the Shia Muslims see the Ayatollah Khomeini. This is the equivalent. So of course they're gonna be ready to go all out if you was to murder their spiritual leader. So that is the equivalent of what you're looking at. And these are the kinds of international discussions that people need to consider when they having these dialogues and discussions. When you're talking about war is not only fought through brute force. People could kill you by destroying desalination plants, just taking away your water supply. People could kill you by destroying your economy. People could kill you by biological warfare, sending a bunch of people who are ill and sick into your society. That war is waged in many different fronts and many different levels, especially where they don't have the ability to have brute force. So I just sometimes I know that the Better Medicine podcast is an educated group of people coming together, and I like to keep our people informed on these kinds of things.
Much appreciated, Buana. Buana, I would ask you this question. There's been a war waged on Black folks in the West for a long time now. Granted, what's going on with Iran and Strait of Hormuz, etc., like you articulated, can in fact raise prices, but we've always been on the shit end of that stick in terms of economic warfare. We've had economic warfare waged against us. We've had medical warfare raised against us. So last week when you brought up the thing about, I wasn't on the panel last week, when you brought up the thing about when prices go, well, what are your kids gonna say? Well, that's the time you gotta have to teach your kids to, as my Jamaican brethren say, ban your belly. You gotta ban your belly, and we gotta figure out our way, which is what Black folks have been doing in this hemisphere, and in the continent for a long time. So is there really a worry for Black folks when you talk about economic? Is there really a worry for folks who already are under the foot of the economic warfare?
There absolutely is. There absolutely is. Because first of all, if we talk about North America, how much let's consider if there's a serious energy crisis. I was living in the United States when they had a blackout. I don't know if the brothers and sisters remember, they had a blackout in the whole Eastern Seaboard, and they had it for a short period of time. But consider, if you will, when you start having rolling blackouts for hours and hours on end, most people have not lived in a situation where they have to live primarily off of the land, where they have to find kerosene light. And I know that this is an extreme example, but to live via kerosene lights, most people have not been able to understand the idea of farming and raising their own animals. You know, some of the people like the Quakers have been able to, they could live sufficiently on that. Illnesses and sicknesses. What happens when there are people who are very sick, by the way, who are very heavily reliant on going to the hospital to heal themselves? You know, where do we have traditional places where we could go to heal ourselves when our elderly are sick, or when our young people are sick? Many people suffer from diabetes, taking all kind of insulin shots and things like that. When you have access to these things, or these things are more and more costly, and you can't go to the hospitals no more, what do our people do about that? I know it's good to say, because it's easy to say that we've been under the gun, but there has been for blacks in the Western world, there's been a bit of progression in how they live in the so-called comforts of the Western world, if you will. But if you completely remove that without working with the ability to replace it with anything else, where do you go? We used to go to the shop to get your regular groceries and stuff no more. Where do our people go who don't own grocery stores? Do we know farmers and people where we could ship food supplies from? Do we know doctors, or doctors who have access to medical supplies, who will take care of our elderly and sick? Do we have these things? I understand it's one thing to say, well, we've been under the gun, but be under the gun when the white people are denied these things, and they looking at you now to say, man, you are the weakest man, or you are the weakest link now, because we have to provide for our families and friends first. So we're going to take care of them before we take care of you all. So can we disconnect from that system and live in a self-sufficient way without living on their grid now? Because they're going to eventually take care of themselves first. You know, because that's just a natural thing. That's just a natural thing. If you think you could go off an idea of, oh, we American or we Canadian or whatever, when they look at you now and say, man, listen, you know, we have our people to feed first. We have to provide for our people first. These people cut off the Strait of Hormuz. We can't access the things that we need. We need to take care of ourselves first. This will be a new reality for Black people because they've not lived in that experience before. You know, my grandparents did. I mean, I know about living with kerosene lamps and rock oven and shit like that. And people say, well, you ain't got to start over from scratch. For some people, that would be their reality. That may be a new reality for people who have never experienced that before. And I'm going to tell you, that will be a culture shock for a whole lot of people. A whole lot of people, brother.
I hear you, boy, and you must have known. I was coming back to tell you, boy, I grew up going on a farm, you know. I grew up right where you grew up. I grew up where current. I remember a Christmas current was off about 2 weeks, and I grew up with kerosene lamp and candle and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool. That's our reality. That's our reality. Your kids are New Yorkers. They know but that.
No, but they don't have to know it. I'm the protector, so I will get them through it. Like Sister Cheryl in the chat says, have you been to the project? Do you know how folks living in the projects in the States? Where man is turning on the oven because the gas is quote unquote free. A man turn on the ovens to heat their pot because they don't get heat and all this kind of stuff. Like what I'm saying, what I'm trying to really get at is sometimes these things are an opportunity. You listed a couple things there. We have places that we can go to heal, but you're right. We've decided to listen to this white boy and go to their places to get healed and to go to their places to get these items and the other. I think the conversation that we should be having, like Bakari likes to have, and I like to have with Bakari, we got to start getting prepared to be able to withstand that. And there was a time in the States, because I'm a student of history, I remember when folks was jumping out of buildings and stuff because of the stock market here. Black folks made it. It was rough. It wasn't glamorous, but black folks made it. And I think us in the Caribbean will make it. We'll find our way, right? My point being, we can't be afraid of what these folks got going on that is going to trickle down to us. It's always trickled down to us. It's just going to look a little different. But the core thing is we got to stand up and get our shit together. And this is an opportunity, actually, to get ourselves together. Webb in the chat says we need to build community again. I think this is the opportunity to start building community. These conversations that we're having, we got to start hitting the streets and saying, hey, man, if these guys do what they do in the Strait of Hormuz in Iran, when things get tough here, what are you going to do? Because here's what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? And what are you going to do? And this is our opportunity to build that community, organize ourselves, and stop sitting back talking about, oh, man, this white boy is he's going to take these luxuries from us because he's going to look up for, of course he's going to look up for himself first. What are you going to do to eke out, to scratch out a living during these times? Juana, you have any last thoughts to this?
No. You raise a great point. And me personally, we have a little bit of land and property, where I am. And the thing is to understand how the land works and how to use the land just in case that, and we have a fresh water supply where I am as well. So you have the water, you have the land, but now you have to figure out how to use it and make it purposeful, just in case. For me, living in Nassau in the Bahamas, I always have a plan B. And because I in the land of, we can't do that. So I always figure out a way to have a plan B. And I would just, for me personally, it's not a personal affront on anybody and how they think. I am just trying to bring awareness to all black people, no matter where you are in the world, to have a plan B, or even a plan C, even in case plan B, ain't clicking. You gotta have a plan C sometimes. So this is my only thing, is just to consider for the brothers and sisters, wherever you are in this planet, have a plan B, because sometimes these things are unintended consequences, and you must have a plan B and a plan C. That's all I'm saying.
No, that's the right message right there. Let's work on this plan D's and C's. Like Webb said earlier, he said organize meetings, meet the good brothers and sisters in your area, selling plates and sharing resources. We ain't gotta be in McDonald's every day. We ain't gotta, do all of this extra stuff. Like Sister Cheryl says, learn how to ration your food. Don't gorge yourself. Don't overindulge. A lot of you talked about the sicknesses, the comorbidities, the diabetes. We don't even need to have to eat 3 times a day. That's something that someone told us to do. You know what I mean? We could work it out, but we got to talk about it. And that's why I like coming to Shoot the Breeze, so that we can talk about this stuff, not be afraid of stuff. And so therefore we kind of bow out, right? Let's sit down and talk about this. We could get through this. Our ancestors got through worse. We can get through this too, man. I appreciate that conversation. D-Web says agreed, get that dual citizenship. Good conversation, Buana. If anyone's out there,
and by the way, to build on, I try to be. I'm a 1 meal a day eater as well. I try. Sometimes I break it and have little snacks here and there. But I'm a 1 meal a day eater, and I think that what you said was true. You don't have to eat 3 meals a day. Matter of fact, primitive man never eat 3 meals a day. They'll be get lucky and they can find 1 meal in the day itself. And I think that we get off of this idea. I don't know where we get it from, that we have to be 3 meals, have to eat 3 meals a day. My woman think that she gotta eat breakfast. I gotta eat breakfast or I'll be sick. Then this is nonsense. This is a mental thing that I think that our people have to get over. And it's very difficult in convincing a man after he's used to something to break that and start acting in a different way. But I agree with that. I think that we need to start challenging these little hard-held beliefs. Like the first one is having to eat 3 meals a day. Sometimes you have to give your stomach a rest. Give your stomach a rest and just eat 1 meal. I eat 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too, before I move to shoot the breeze topic number 2, this is something we can learn from our civil rights ancestors down south, down in the American South. Man, sometimes walk that mile, man. Walk that 2 miles. You know what I mean? Like, I see it's in the States here, I see people would be using mass transportation, public transportation, and then they get a car. And the next thing you know, they're driving 2 blocks to go pick up some food. I'm like, dude, you could have walked that. You start up your car to go do that. You could have walked that. What we used to do, what's it called again when you pack a bunch of people in your car?
Carpooling.
Right? $10 hypothetical $10 a gallon. If 4 of us in the car, we are actually paying what was that? $2.50 a gallon. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that we could do, but it goes back. It goes back to what Webb said here. Need to build community, organize meetings, meet the good brothers and sisters in your area, selling plates, sharing resources. That's what it's about. That's what we got to be talking about when these types of things come up. You know what I mean? Shout out to Brother Bakari. I saw him. Yeah, he said peace and Black African power, Black African family. So shout out to all of you, and thanks for being here again tonight. We're going to move on to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2. Make sure you hit the like button for me. Share the show on social media. Let people know what you're up to tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 says, are you more of a stabber or dancer? Which one is more practical? And what is the end goal of both? This comes with a link to a Kamjiverse video. We will watch it and then we'll discuss.
Africans everywhere deserve and must have reparations. 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 Africans everywhere deserve and must have reparations, but the white man may not give any of us reparations. We may have to take what belongs to us. You sit around forever in inactivity waiting for some reparations.
So I want to go over a methodology that I use. It's called Stabbers and Dancers. And these are some methodologies specifically as it relates to the ways that African nationalists approach Abrahamic faith traditions. Now, there are many African nationalists, Pan-African nationalists, who confide and identify with Abrahamic traditions. I live in the Bay Area, and there's a lot of Pan-African nationalism. You have African nationalist Christians, African nationalist Muslims. So there's an ecosystem here of promoting Black nationalism, even in the midst of the changing demographics. But when it comes to, the way that we approach these traditions, I've come up with 2 distinct labels. There's a stabber, and the stabber is somebody who opposes Abrahamic traditions. This would be the Obadeli Cambone of the world. This would be, the Mama Zamas of the world. They would oppose, Abrahamic faith traditions, and they would seek to build parallel African spiritual traditions or independent African spiritual traditions that are not Abrahamic, right? And then this would be their mentality. Then you have the dancers, and the dancers are more so those who coincide with these traditions, who want to teach people about these traditions, and they may attend services, but their idea is to build a relationship and build a bond, a deeper bond. And many of them may even believe it, but they still have a desire of Pan-African nationalism, even though they do confide in these faith traditions, right? So one of the things that I've noticed with respect to these different groups, these different, angles, is that both sides would use the classical literature of ancient Kemet. Now, from a historical linguistic perspective, this would be a fossilized version of the Paleo-African or Niger-Egyptian language family. But because of its position as systematically, like in terms of a systematic theology, the systematic theology is very developed. You have classical texts as some of the oldest liturgical texts in the world. And it gives the ability of, Pan-African unity, because from the perspective of the dancers, those who are looking for African roots of the Christian faith, they could go no further than the School of Alexandria with housed Christian theology and just the development of Christianity from antiquity. They don't have to necessarily search very far to find Kemetic treatises used to construct, the faith tradition that we know as Christianity. And the same is the case for those who confide in Islam. They have no barrier in terms of like using these African faith traditions as these classical African faith traditions to show the origin of the Abrahamic faiths. But then when you're dealing with African traditions, those who may want to reconstruct African traditions, because of the impact of slavery, they don't necessarily have a preserved structure, or that which we call preserved is a fallen version, an economically depressed version of our African spiritual systems. This is why you have a lot of marabouts and, diviners, traditional healers who are scammers and are using the capitalist economic structure as a way of building themselves in these traditions. And then you have, those who, they may say this deity wants a global Western capitalist economy in order to satisfy the deities in the shrines. And it's interesting how within these African traditional faiths, you don't see them promoting African. The deity never wants an original African brand or original African cola, an original African food stuff. Like they don't want these things, but they want the value things that most Africans are valorizing in the Western economy, in the Westernized economy. And this is another way that, the traditions are colonized, the spiritual traditions are colonized. Now, in my personal position, I would not say that these spiritual traditions necessarily need to be developed into religions. Personally, I would say that we don't need more religions. We should develop them into philosophical frameworks used to validate other aspects of reality, or we should develop them into science and engineering. And I'm more so put for the latter, though I do believe the former is integrated in that. And these are much better than trying to recreate another religion or faith system. And this is probably something that many Black atheists or African atheists would support, because it would give them the ability to be able to engage with reality without adopting a religion, especially a religion that they would classify as from foreigners. And in this setup, if an African chooses to confide within Christianity or Islam and another faith tradition, outside of the cultural heritage preservation, that is ultimately their choice, right? And I would even say that there's going to be a period of reform as the demographics change. As the majority of Muslims are in Africa and the majority of Christians are in Africa, you're going to see a change of the way that we view these traditions more towards their African origins, than you do now. So that which we call Christianity and Islam may be completely different by 2100. It may be completely and totally different by 2100, and it may be a more of a reflection of both the African adherents of Christianity as well as the African roots of Christianity and Islam. You're going to see, a greater sharing, of the African cultural preservation heritage that you see with the reformed versions of these Abrahamic faith traditions. Now, there's also something to be said about, those who would wish to reconstruct a different religious framework, especially those as it relates to the Asheshe tradition and as it relates to just different African traditions on the continent. That which they reconstruct most likely will reflect the systematic theology that we have in front of us, be it Christianity, Islam. People have criticized Jabari Osaze and his Shrine of Ma'at, which, after his recent splitting and remarrying, doesn't seem to have been, or doesn't seem to be functional, or he seems to be in a transitional period. But many people have criticized the Shrine of Ma'at for resembling Catholicism and resembling even Hindu chants and stuff like that. And you do see borrowing. As Africans in the diaspora are attempting to reconstruct that which was lost in the Ma'afa. You will see them borrowing certain principles, and I've seen this borrowing, whether it's in the Hindu context, whether it's in the New Age context. You see Black folks using these things as a way of survival. But ultimately, even in that sense, even if you are trying to recreate a religion, you're going to recreate the religion based upon the religions that you know. And again, in all of this just speaks to how pivotal and quintessential classical Africa is in this process, because whether you're a dancer or a stabber, whether you want to immediately go after it, stab it, go against the Abrahamic faith traditions, or you want to coincide and grow in the natural process. Right, y'all can tell that I'm a dancer just by the way that I'm talking about it. But regardless of your position, classical Africa, ancient Kemi and Kush, they play a pivotal role in just the development of these different African traditions and Africanization. And ultimately, the goal is economic unity, economic progress and development, right? That's the natural goal that unites us, even though there are deeper eternal goals that we have in our life. But that's the natural goal that unites us. So, we're going to go a little bit deeper and categorize just some of the different ways that the dancers and stabbers and these spiritual traditions coincide and work together. And we're going to keep tabs on this. That's all I got for y'all on this. I hope to catch you on the next one. Peace.
Stabbers versus dancers. Before I talk about that, I just want to shout out KW Don 7. KW Don 7 says, I have been successfully losing weight using the 16-8 fasting method, down 35 pounds this year and counting. And I have to give you a round of applause for that. Definitely the fasting methods is what heals your body. Getting good sleep is what heals your body. And those are the things we got to talk about amongst ourselves, our people. We got to try to promote that kind of stuff. This idea that the Rothschilds put out there that you have to eat 3 times a day, that's an economic move. They push that so you'll be buying more and more food, right? We have to be aware of it, and we have to avoid some of this stuff. Before I get into the prompt properly, real quick, Sister Cheryl in the chat says, doing Christianity and African traditions is like having traditional African wedding and quote-unquote white weddings for one union. Like, why? It's a contradiction and unnecessary. And she adds, and it's a waste of money and resources. Real quick, Culture Education says, and shout out to him, says, because our fam doesn't see those as antagonistic. He goes on to say, so the Muslims have it right with Ramadan. Oh, yeah, as far as fasting and all that, yeah. You know what I mean? Should be something number 2 says, are you more of a stabber or a dancer? Which one is more practical and what is the end goal? So if I have it correct, the stabber is the one who kind of just gets right to it and wants to get this stuff away from us. The dancer is the one who wants to kind of two-step with these religious practices and whatnot. So I put this to the chat because I can't post a poll in YouTube right now. Which one are you guys? Are you a stabber or are you a dancer? let me welcome in our good friend and panelist, Black Steel, this week. Black Steel, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad to see you made it, I guess, home or what
Yeah,
have
I'm back.
you safely. Good, good, good. So let me start with Buana. Buana, which one? First of all, which one are you, based on your understanding of what Cam did?
Yeah, first of all, let me say the congratulations to KW Don for his dietary practice. I think that what he's doing is very good. When it comes to fasting, you like you say, you do a whole lot of body cleaning, and also your mind is clearer. Your mind is actually clearer. So shout out to you for accomplishing that feat with 35 pounds. Not a lot of people can make that claim. So shout out to you for that. For me personally, on the answer to this question, Koku, I am non-aligned, and all the brothers and sisters know it. I'm Norway. I'm Norway. I'm not aligned. I don't choose to get into the religious discussions. However, for this particular prompt, let me try to see if I could address it as best as I could. I kind of err on the side of Kamji. When he says to incorporate the sciences and technology into the religion. I when I look at history and I see what the Muslims did in Spain in incorporating the science and technology as far as the religion is concerned, and also there are many kinds of mathematics, algebra, alchemistry. All these things came out of the religion itself, but they built on it. The Christians didn't seem to. The Christians seemed to kill their scientists. They was very antithetical to that whole idea of incorporating the fusing together the technical world and the scientific world in with the Christianity. It wasn't too big on that. So I think that they will have to answer that question. As far as African spirituality, I think that we have our own chemists and we have our own scientists. The Western world used to call them witch doctors. They call our medicines and alchemistry, obeah, and all kind of nonsensical things. But I think that if we was to incorporate these things and going forward and dealing with the spirituality, for me, I would more inclined to take a second look at it. But for real, right now, I am still at the level of practicing Pan-African pragmatism. I kind of like err in the agnostic arena when it comes to the whole, unseen world, because that's not the world that I am in. But I will leave it to the spiritualists and the religionists to figure it out, and then after that, I'll see where I fall on that. But right now, I kind of like I'm unaligned. That's where I am with it. But I'll let Black Steel go.
Before Black Steel go, I just want to say that I don't know if Islam and the religious belief in Islam is what led to their work in science. I think it's just that they live under a religious way of life and they did scientific work. It's like being a Bahamian and coming up with some scientific theorem. I don't know if being Bahamian is what made you come up with that theorem. I think you just did science while being Bahamian. I think sometimes I think we give them a little too much credit for that religion creating that science. I don't know if that's really true. I think it's just kind of a happenstance type of thing. But kudos to them for their contributions in science, of course. But I don't know if Allah or Muhammad, more specifically, gave them the edict to go out there and do science, and you know what I mean. So I don't know if the Quran tells them to go out there and do science, just like the Bible probably doesn't tell people to go out there and do science, right? I just think that they did it, because they were inquisitive and they came with. I actually was watching this aside. I was watching something the other day where they was talking about how like the camera ultimately came to be, and it was a guy, an Islamic guy in Egypt who was actually like locked up by the leadership at the time in Egypt. And while he was sitting in his dark cell, he saw a speck of light come through, and that's how he started to formulate these ideas around light and etc. So yeah, I just thought I'll just put that out there real quick. Black Steel, Were you able to see this video that I played?
No, I wasn't. Was it a long video?
Yeah, it's about a 10-minute video.
Nah.
Basically, Cam G is he designates stabbers versus dancers, and he's talking about the religious issue, I guess, that we have going on, where some people are stabbers. They just want to kind of get rid of it. It's not a part of our tradition, and so let's just get rid of it. Versus the dancer, which Kamji admits he's kind of the dancer, kind of go along with it, two-step along with it, and I guess try to make it work for you. So my first question is, are you a stabber or are you a dancer?
I would definitely be considered a dancer myself. I don't think it's practical to get rid of 95% of the population of African people, right? Because most of them belong to some form of Abrahamic religion, be it Christianity, Islam, whatever. I think you may have to just make should we make efforts to de-evangelize? Absolutely. But I don't think that saying that, oh, well, you can't be a part of our movement if you don't believe or if you don't have the same religious belief as us, that's just not going to work. I think there has to be steps gradually taken to change that. But I think for the time being, you may just have to, keep your beliefs to yourself. And kind of like how Malcolm X talked about when he formed his organization of African American Unity. He was a Muslim, but he wanted to keep his beliefs personal. What I believe should not have any bearing on this movement. So with that in mind, you should be able to work for the betterment of African people by keeping your personal religious beliefs to yourself. I think that's the best way to go about it. Because again, if you got 95% of the population of Africans across the world belonging to one of these religions, it's going to be hard making movements or organizing if you're excluding them. So that's just practical. My thoughts on it. So with me not being seen in the video, but yeah, I would definitely say dancer would be a more realistic term. Not to say I prefer one or the other, but realistically speaking, it's just not going to happen otherwise.
Right. So yeah, to be practical, you think that you got to kind of go along with it, at least for the time being.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. With that said, let's welcome in Sister Cheryl this week. Sister Cheryl, how are you?
I'm good. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, I'm definitely, you know, I think sometimes with questions like this, you got to put it into context. Like you have to give like a scenario because there are. I think sometimes when people maybe like if they're presented with these two choices, maybe they say they're a dancer, but they kind of lean more towards being a stabber. And the reason I say that is because you have to give context to a situation. If you got a bunch of black people that say, well, I'm Christian and there's no way I'm going to change that. That's just that. I don't care what you tell me. They're just, some black people are just ignorant like that. That is a dancer. Okay. If we got to put some some nuance to this because you got black people that are in the middle. You got black people that are like, forget all of that nonsense. That's African crap. That's bull. That's that African stuff. That to me that's a dancer. Like, okay, if you're recognizing that there are steps that need to be taken to get to a certain point, then you're not a dancer. You're you're just a realistic person. You realize that the steps need to be taken. But a dancer is someone that's just flat out like Christianity is mine. The Muslim faith is mine, and I'm not letting go of it no matter what. That's a dancer. That's a dancer. They try, or they in efforts to try to keep being Muslim or being Christian, they incorporate some African stuff in it. I see a lot of that. As that happens a lot. They're dancers. They're in between. They're still trying to figure it out, but they're still dancers. And if you're recognizing that that's a problem, and you can see that that's a problem, and you're not a dancer. Maybe you're leaning towards being a stabber, but you're not a dancer fully. So I'll just leave it there like that. And I'm a stabber. That means the child that this is giving even more context. The children that I have, I'm not going to raise them to be um, dancers. I'm going to raise them to so that they can understand. You have different levels of black people with different levels of confusion, but we're aspiring to be stabbers, absolutely, because there's not going to be no tolerance of that Christian and that Muslim stuff in my household. Not in my household. I'm not going to just let it go past. Oh yeah, we're all because we're all going to get along and just to get along. No, that's foolish. That's foolish. That's not reality. Okay, so that's my take. It's not really one or the other. It's like what are we doing with it? What are we doing with our next generations? What are we teaching them? Because if we're teaching the exact same things, then that's where the problem is. That's where you're blurring the line between stabber and dancer. So I'll leave it there.
So I like how Sister Cheryl says context matters. Okay. Tams, you talked about it in terms of Christianity. Oh, Abrahamic religions, right? Let me ask you all this then. You're formulating, we've gone through the war, we're formulating our nations. We have power, but we're formulating our nations. Are you a stabber or a dancer when it comes to the LGBTQ, which is like a religion at this point? Are you a stabber or a dancer when it comes to that? When we have black LGBTQ folks who tell you there's no liberation of black people without first the liberation and considerations of LGBTQ. Are you a stabber or a dancer? I'm just going to go down the line. Buana, what say you?
I'm a, I'm a stabber. I'm a stabber. And this may Neely Fuller. Neely Fuller said a long time ago. He said that in dealing with the LGBT issue, he asked the question: is what they are doing an improvement on what's been done before? Okay, is it an improvement? And show me in a way, get the two people, the two same-sex individuals, up on a stage, and show me how is an improvement or it is better than what's been practiced before. And it's not a competition, but I'm saying that what the Africans have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, and even not on a biological level where you're reproducing, but is that act an improvement or development on what's been practiced before? And I don't think it is. I don't personally think it is. In fact, I go so far to say it's destructive. The act itself is destructive. When you think about it, the act itself is destructive. When I talk about two males getting together, that's very destructive. So I don't see why we should. I'm more of a stabber on that idea, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of the whole LGBT community. I'm just saying that I don't see it as an improvement on how human beings have lived prior to this whole thing becoming an issue. And people could always show there were always people who've been practicing these things, in a small degree, but you always have anomalies in humanity. But the vast majority of us we are the quiet majority. They used to use that term, the quiet majority. And the quiet majority, usually sometimes they don't get a chance to speak because the loudest voices in the room, unfortunately, are the people who represent the smallest percentage of people who particularly practicing something, and sometimes that's very unfair. So I just personally think I am more of a stabber because I don't see that act itself as an improvement on how human beings used to engage one another for centuries and centuries and centuries. I don't see it. Now, maybe someone could convince me otherwise, but I don't see it that way.
So, Buana, real quick, do you see the Abrahamic religions as being an improvement upon what Africans have believed in for centuries upon centuries upon centuries?
No, I think that I personally think is a backwards walk because first of all, if you go into any and like I say, I'm not a religionist, but if you go into any religious culture, even the Buddha, let's use the Buddha for his example. The Buddha in India, it looks like Indians, just on a practical level. And the Buddha in China looks like a Chinaman, a big fat Chinaman. So just on that itself alone, on imagery and how you internalize what your God is supposed to be. And we have attached ourselves to this foreign element, this foreign religion that displaces us, displaces the black person's ability to have his own gods, to have his own gods. Where are our gods? Why does our God look like a nice European hippie guy with long hair and a sharp nose? And many people are just gonna say, God don't have no color. That's not true. Michelangelo or whoever created that image with God and Adam putting their fingers together in the Sistine Chapel. This is the idea in the mind of many Christian people when they think about Christianity. And please forgive me, I don't mean to harbor on Christianity because Islam is the same thing. They have the same kind of imagery. You know, Muhammad is never, well, they don't have images of Muhammad, but he is never a black man. You know, so I think that so I think it's a backwards walk when we ingest these foreign religions and bring them to our chest as if they are our own. I am not the adopted child of the chosen people who their God already done chosen who his children is. So I have to latch myself onto these people to be no, don't worry. I'm not a surrogate and I'm not an adoptee. I have my own God, just like how they have their own God. So for me, it's a backwards walk, you know, in looking at that and that referencing for this particular thing. Because y'all know where I stand on the whole religious thing. But that's where I stand on that. I think it's backwards.
So it sounds like you're a stabber there, Buana. Let's go to Black Steel. Black Steel, same scenario to you.
Well, first of all, I disagree with you when you say LGBTQ is a religion. First of all, right? It's a sexual orientation, right? And I know I'm gonna be the one who's gonna stand out here. I'm more of a dancer, right? What you do in the privacy of your bedroom is not my business, right? So what if Juana, you like to lick barbecue sauce off your girl's nipples? Like that's your business, right? I don't. That's not my concern. Or what if Cheryl, you like to swing from the your ceiling fan with your dude? That's your business. So my belief is this: if what you do in your private life, as long as it does not impact our movement, is your private life. Just like I wouldn't outlaw people playing video games or collecting comic books or going fishing after work, I wouldn't outlaw people's sexual proclivities as long as it's between two consenting adults. You messing with kids, you gotta go, right? You a rapist, you gotta go.
Black Steel, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I gotta say, remember what I mentioned. It's happened several times where members of the LGBTQ, Black LGBTQ, have said there'll be no Black liberation unless we are recognized first. So, with that in mind, continue.
So, I have a problem with the first part, right? I believe that if for Black people to be liberated, all of us will be liberated. Now, are they putting their sexual orientation above their Blackness? I got a problem with that, right? Because before you're anything, you're Black first. So I have a problem with just that framing of their liberation first, right? And that's not the case. They're not oppressing you because you're gay. They're oppressing you because you're Black. People don't know your orientation until you do something, until you say something. They can see you're Black. So the idea that you know that has to come before anything is just a ridiculous idea. Now, I don't believe they should be mistreated in any way, right? I do say that, but yeah, I don't think it comes first. Now, I think that the liberation has to include them, right? Because you can't be free with us because you like this and you like that. I don't agree with that. I think that they shouldn't be mistreated in any way. But as far as putting them first, that's a ridiculous thing. They have to understand that Black, your race, like Garvey said, race first. That's got to come before anything, right? Your sexual orientation You keep that to yourself. Nobody would know what you do unless you say something about it. So I think that's a private matter. That should not, honestly, as long as it's a private matter, I don't even see why it needs to be brought up. All right, because what you do is what you do. You like what you like. That's a private issue. You keep it in your home. In your home, I don't believe you should be mistreated or anything like that. But if you want to make that your primary identity, and then everything else comes afterwards, just like when you have in the feminist movement, right? They put their woman first, in their black second, right? That aligns you with white women. If you put your sexual orientation first, that puts you in brotherhood and fellowship with other gay people, regardless of their racial background. Okay, but white gays mistreat black gays all the time. That's a well-known thing. They've erased the history that black gay people have done to push gay rights forward. You know, and I bring up the Stonewall riot. It was a black lesbian who started that whole riot, but you don't even hear that mentioned. So, no, I would say you got to. I'm a dancer, but within reason. Yeah, black first, always.
Now we get into it, because a lot of the Abrahamic religion folks, they put that first before their blackness.
They do, and that's the problem. If you gotta be black first before you're anything else. You might be, you're Christian, but if you're black, your blackness comes before that. And then what I think personally, and this will help me, is that you come into a sort of like a mental cognitive dissonance, right? And I think that cognitive dissonance within your brain, you're trying to reconcile two things. And it's difficult for a lot of people to come to terms with this, two competing ideologies. And I think that's what moves some people out of the religion, or in some cases, because they can't reconcile the ideology, they create fiction for themselves. It's where you come up with the Hebrews and the Dr. Malachi Yorks and all the other people. We're the ancient Hebrews of the Bible, whatever. So I think that mental distance that you get comes into play when you have this conversation.
Absolutely. I agree with what you said. It reminded me, the last part you said reminded me of Cornel West. I remember Cornel West, who, if I remember correctly, went to theology school. And he had a hard time reconciling what that religion did to his people. But somehow he found a way. He's a dancer too. But from what I'm hearing, you guys tend to be a little bit of a stabber. I'm going to go to Sister Cheryl next with the same hypothetical, but quickly, Brother Bakari in the chat says, "Thank you, Buana. Black people refuse to say anything about Islam." Culture Education says, "Black Christians have a hard time putting black first because that would include black spiritual cultural systems." I'm going to leave that comment up there. I like that comment, Cultured Education. Sister Cheryl, same scenario put to you. Are you a stabber or a dancer in that scenario?
Can you repeat the scenario again?
The scenario was LGBTQ. You're about to formulate your black nation. You've fought, you've won the war, you got power. Now you're formulating your nation to secure and to keep that power. What do you, in light of how black LGBTQ have taken a stance of, many, not all, but many have taken that stance of there'll be no black liberation until there's black LGBTQ liberation. Are you a stabber or are you a dancer?
Definitely a stabber, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because with the LGBT political platform, because that's what they've created. They turned it political. So once you turn it political, everything and anything goes. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people who say that they're LGBT, but they don't have a political understanding of it. Okay, I'm not talking about those people, but LGBT as a whole, it feeds off of intersectionality. So therefore, if you are LGBT first, you can't even you can't do anything. You can't put black LGBT before blackness, because if you put LGBT before blackness, you're putting whites before blackness. You're putting Hispanics before. You're putting Chinese. You're putting disabled people before blackness. You're putting obese people before blackness, because LGBT operates in intersectionality. So you cannot, absolutely not, absolutely not. And this is not about anyone's personal feelings. The facts don't care about your feelings. Like this stuff is everywhere. This LGBT stuff specifically it's everywhere. It's like 70% of Netflix. So you have your children sitting up there watching Netflix, and they send in your children subliminal messages about being same sex. You have you have GAC, you have gender affirming care, right? Talking, they call it gender affirming care. It's getting your stuff chopped off. You're emaciating yourself. You're destroying yourself. But they want to put it into these beautiful little words, gender affirming care. No, this crap stops now. People got to stop being so scared to hurt somebody's feelings. I'm not scared to hurt nobody's feelings, because they brought it to my table. They brought it straight. They brought it straight to me when they decided to become political. When they're trying to get in the men trying to get into female sports, absolutely not. On every political platform, they're trying to push blackness onto the back burner. So absolutely not. I'm absolutely a stabber. And yeah, maybe y'all have your people that are LGBT. The whole thing of it is LGBT is a part of somebody else's culture to begin with. So nobody's saying that, oh, I hate when people just bring that gaslighting ass conversation to the point where they're just like, oh, well, oh, I don't mean any harm to them. Nobody means any harm to anybody. That's foolishness. I hate when people bring up that conversation, because nobody's saying to hurt anybody. Nobody's advocating to hurt anybody. Okay. This is a fight that they wanted. They wanted this. They wanted to put it in our children's schools. They wanted to stop women from competing in women's sports. They're bringing the fight to us. So guess what? If I retaliate, don't complain that I retaliate. So blackness is first on all levels, because this is the game they want to play. Let's play it. I'm gonna stop there.
Interesting that everything that was said when I swapped the LGBTQ in for the Abrahamic, everything was said is the same. It applies to the Abrahamics as well. But for some reason, we have a difficulty dealing with the Abrahamics. They put it in our schools. They propagandize in our children's TV shows and our TV show. Everything that was mentioned, you can apply it to the Abrahamics. Real quick, Sister Cheryl, who is Kimberly Crenshaw? Culture Education says, I take it Amma is not a fan of Kimberly Crenshaw. I'm not familiar with that person. Who's that person?
I'm not familiar with her, but I can probably take a stab in the dark. Maybe she's a lesbian, and maybe she has a white girlfriend or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm taking a stab in the dark.
Okay. Does anyone else on the panel happen to know who Kimberly Crenshaw is? I guess that's a no. All right. But that was a real good conversation. Again, Kamji framed the stabber dancer thing in the Abrahamics, but we see that if we apply something else, and I'm not saying it's a religion. I'm saying people treat it damn near.
It is a religion.
The LGBTQ stuff, we see it's the same. It's the same. The same issue occurs, but we don't apply it to the Abrahamics as easily. Culture Education says she invented the term and concept of intersectionality. Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I did not know that. Kimberly Crenshaw. I have to look that name up. If there's no last thoughts here, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3. This one is going to be interesting. Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 says, was the UN the best available platform to implement this resolution, given its current veto power architecture? Will architecture absorb ideology in this case, as it often does? Well, once you heard the UN mentioned, you could probably figure out, if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the news, you can probably figure out what this is about. This wasn't originally a part of the prompt given, but I'm putting this video here. This is President Mahama of Ghana speaking on the transatlantic slave trade at the UN. We're going to play his address here first. It's pretty short. And then I'll play the next video that actually came with the prompt. So let's play this one first, and then we'll discuss some more.
Your Excellency, Secretary General of the UN, Excellencies, permanent representatives, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Progress is made in little steps. It is the forward motion towards something better, and changes often come incrementally. Today marks the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. It is a day on which we honor the memory of the approximately 13 million African men, women, and children who were enslaved over the course of several centuries. We remember them through articles, oral histories, through broadcast programs, books, music, visits to museums, monuments, and memorials such as the Ark of Return, located right here at the Visitors Plaza of the United Nations headquarters. Through these activities, we do more than remember. We document and educate. We gain greater perspective. We find the delicate balance of learning from history so that we do not repeat it while leaving our pain behind. In doing so, we begin to heal individually within our immediate communities and also within the global community. This day of remembrance did not happen by accident. In 2006, our global community gathered here, just as we have done today, and resolved to designate the 25th of March of the following year a day of remembrance. It marked significant progress. Then the following year, in 2007, we decided to make the event an annual one so that the 25th March of every year would be the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. That marked an additional step in our forward motion. And so it's indeed fortuitous to be here today, 2 decades later, addressing the General Assembly on behalf of the African Group regarding the draft resolution entitled Declaration of the Trafficking of Enslaved Africans and Racialized Chattel Enslavement of Africans as the Gravest Crime Against Humanity. In September last year, at the 80th session of the General Assembly, I stood in this exact place and served notice that Ghana will move a motion to declare the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. This current draft resolution is a result of months of consultation and consensus building by continental bodies, nations, experts, scholars, and jurists, with the sole aim of achieving a united front and grounding the final outcome in truth, compassion, and moral conscience, remembrance, education, and dialogue. So today we come together in solemn solidarity to affirm truth and pursue a route to healing and reparative justice. The adoption of this resolution serves as a safeguard against forgetting. It also challenges the enduring scars of slavery. Madam President, let me conclude with two significant quotes by two great leaders of history, one of them white and one of them black. The former President of the United States of America, Theodore Roosevelt, said, and I quote, "With a great moral issue involved, neutrality does not serve righteousness. For to be neutral between right and wrong is to serve wrong." Again, civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King also reminds us, and I quote, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." We've traveled this long road, each step guided by a desire to be better and to do better. Each step bringing us closer to the kind of world we would want to leave for our children. And so, delegates, on this beautiful day in March, we're called to stand on the right side of history. Let it be recorded that when history beckoned, we did what was right for the memory of the millions who suffered the indignity of the slave trade and those who continue to suffer racial discrimination. Let our vote on this resolution restore their dignity and humanity. I thank you for the opportunity.
So I just put that in there for a little bit of context, but the real attachment that came with this video is this one, with Dolly Camden being interviewed. So we'll watch this one and then we'll discuss it all.
Public connection with him one more time. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Much better. You were making a point.
Yeah, so I've been following the discussions about the establishment of the transatlantic enslavement, the vote on that at the UN. And, you know, while we can definitely regard the transatlantic enslavement as the greatest crime in the history of humanity, one thing that I find puzzling, however, is the reason why it may have been divorced in some way, shape, or form from the trans-Saharan enslavement of Black people as well. Because with that, you can look at the Sidi people who were taken to what is now modern-day India, coming from the eastern coast of the continent, and this goes back to 628 CE. You can look at even prior to that, you can look at even the enslavement of the people of classical Kemet by the Hyksos, and that dates to around 1550 BCE. Or you can come more recent and you look at the Zanj Rebellion. This is the first known rebellion of enslaved Black people in the diaspora, and it's the Eastern diaspora, and that one is taking us into 869 to 883 CE. And when we look comprehensively, you know, if we're looking at the transatlantic, aspect of enslavement, that takes us to 1441 CE, with the Portuguese coming and raiding along the coast, Antal Gonçalves and Nuno Tristão, under the behest of Prince Henry the Navigator of Portugal, who intentionally came and captured Black people. They were later joined by Lázaro de Freitas and others to capture over 200 people. And then this is the start of transatlantic enslavement. But again, if we look, collectively, this is much more than just transatlantic enslavement, because this is ongoing. When we look at the Arabs in these so-called northern African countries like Libya, some years ago, there was a video on BBC where it was showing Black people who are being, quote unquote, sold on an auction in Libya. And there were actually protests, in front of the Libyan embassy. And when I saw that, I said, these people don't know what they're doing, because they also need to protest in front of the Morocco embassy, and also in front of the Tunisian embassy, and also in front of the Egyptian embassy and the Sudanese embassy, and all of these North African countries, because across the board, Black people are still being enslaved, to the point where when Morocco joined the AU in 2016, they had about 250,000 Black people enslaved according to Global Slavery Index. So when we look at this, when we're looking at transatlantic, the question that puzzles me is why we would separate that from Saharan Indian Ocean, because those are actually the predecessors of the transatlantic one, and those are still ongoing. Like I said, as of 2016, I was looking at the data because I was comparing when Haiti applied to join the African Union, and they were told that according to 29.1 of the AU's Constitutive Act, only African countries, meaning those that are on the continent, can be members of the AU. Meanwhile, Haiti, that is much more Black and African, if that means anything whatsoever, than these countries that have been overrun by Arabs. And the point that I'm driving at is that we even know the dates on which the Arabs came into, this land that we now refer to as Africa. We know when they started the conquest, 639 CE under the Caliph Umar. We know in 652, this is when they had the Bach Treaty with Nubia, where they actually forced people to conscript other Black people as a tribute. And they said, okay, because you've been conquered, now you have to give us tribute in human beings. So this is, again, 652 CE. All of this predates 1441 in terms of the transatlantic enslavement of Black people. So it's definitely part of a much wider crime against humanity. And I would say it's the latter day crime against humanity. And that one is still ongoing as well, because if you look at the U.S., according to the 13th Amendment of the U.S., it says slavery shall not exist within the U.S. or any place subject to their jurisdiction, except whereas the party has been duly convicted of a crime. Right. That caveat is how they were able to keep enslaving people through convict leasing, keep enslaving people through nowadays privatized prisons in the prison industrial complex. They intentionally put that into the 13th Amendment so that they could keep getting free labor from Black people, and that's what exists to this day. Right.
Don't go yet. Let me bring in Kwadwo Appiah-Etua. He's a professor of law at the University of Ghana. Professor Appiah-Etua, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. The demand for the recognition of transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity at the United Nations actually has some legal twists and turns to it, whether it passes or not. Tell us about it.
Thanks for having me. Yes, there is definitely a legal dimension to the whole slavery question and the reparations that President is demanding. When we look at the whole slavery issue, when it comes to reparations, they generally look at it from a moral point of view, that we can make a moral claim, but we cannot make a legal claim for slavery. But that is unfounded. There's a legal claim for slavery because at the time that the whole process started, slavery was illegal under international law. There's a principle in international law we call the jus cogens norms, which is a peremptory norm of international law. That is the highest form of international law principle. And at the time that the slavery was in place, the transatlantic slavery I'm talking about, the jus cogens principle had sought to delegitimize slavery as a practice. Moreover, in international law, there's a principle we call the persistent objector. When customary international law is emerging, states that take part in it in terms of state practice, with the backed by what we call the state practice and opinion juris. That is the legality attached to the state practice. That is what the two come together to consider what we call customary international law. And it's only this customary international law only applies to states that take part in the practice. Right. And the historical facts clearly indicate that a number of these African empires and kingdoms at the time objected to the practice. Some even wrote letters to some of the European countries against the negative impact of the practice on their citizens, on their demography, and so on. So to me, that makes a strong case that international law did not legalize slave trade at the time. But then those countries that were benefiting from them, the European countries, sought to change the face of international law to make slavery legal. And so at a point in time in the history of international law, slavery was recognized as a legal practice. But this was based on customary practice. It wasn't based on a treaty law, for example, that there was a treaty that legalized slavery, except among the European countries at the time. And again, when we talk about treaties, if you don't sign and you don't ratify, you are not a party to that treaty. And at that time, African states, empires, and kingdoms had also been reduced to the status of not having sovereignty, and therefore they couldn't sign these treaties and be part of it, even if they had wanted to. Okay, so on that basis, we can make a strong case that slavery, as a transatlantic slave trade at that time, was not legal. And therefore, if you are making claims for reparations, it shouldn't be based on moral arguments. It should be based on legal arguments that it was wrong. And if it was wrong 400 years ago and so on, it is still wrong today because we are talking about slavery falling into the realm of international crimes against humanity. Yes, so there's no expiry date on when we can make claims.
Right.
Now, coming down to whether we can make the claims today, in principle, yes, as I said, we can argue on grounds of international law. But the process that we have now, going through the UN system, unfortunately, in my opinion, is not going to yield any results because it's not the first time that Africa has attempted that, and it's not the second time. And even in 2001, there was a UN conference held in Durban, South Africa, which sought to came to a similar conclusion that slavery should be considered as a crime against humanity. Okay, and there is a beautiful document on that, but unfortunately, that has remained as a UN declaration, which is not binding, and therefore you cannot use it to make claims legally for the crimes that were committed in the past.
Right. Professor Appiah-Jatu, I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Professor Kambon in once again. You, as I mentioned earlier, are very passionate about this particular subject. There are concerns that no matter how it goes, whether the UN adopts or rejects this resolution, it will be a historic milestone. Do you share in that sentiment?
Well, Prof. Appiah-Jatu, after a colleague of mine, we worked on various things together. I share a similar sentiment. There's a proverb that they use in the Caribbean where they say, in a court of fowls, a cockroach never gets justice. And that is to say the UN includes those that in the past were enslaving Black people and to date are still enslaving Black people. And that, includes the Arab states and what's now known as North Africa that I mentioned before. That also includes the US, which, as I mentioned before, according to the 13th Amendment, slavery shall not exist except where they've convicted a person of a crime. That includes, all of these other beneficiaries of ill-gotten gains who are still, gaining, through the continued enslavement of Black people or the past enslavement of Black people. So, according to Baba Omowale Malcolm X, there were these notorious criminals in the U.S. called Frank James and Jesse James. And he said that, to ask one to adjudicate on another is a futile effort because both of them are armed robbers. So if you ask one to say something against the other one, it implies his own guilt thereof. So, I think that just symbolically that there's something to be done there, but also there's a precedent for this as well. There's a very good book by Professor Napafe, where Jose Linyan Napafe, that goes into Lorenzo da Silva Mendoza and the Black abolitionist movement of the 17th century, where 1684 to 1686, a lot of people don't know this, he actually took a court case to the Vatican because the Vatican is, through the papal bulls, they are the ones who actually said that slavery shall exist in perpetuity, perpetual enslavement. That was basically a new idea that these people, meaning Black people, and their children forever and ever would be enslaved. And again, that was the papal bull Dum Diversis, and then also Romanus Pontifex. So he said, well, because this is the religious justification of enslavement, let me actually take the court case to there. And actually won the court case where some people were able to be brought back to Angola from Brazil. However, as we know, in 1686, that didn't end enslavement altogether. Most people don't even know that it was going on that far back. So, these are precedents that we can look at in terms of law, in terms of international law, in terms of cases that have been brought to the UN. Nana Paul Robeson and others brought this case, We Charge Genocide, again, trying to come to the UN. But I feel like because you have all of these people who are victims of enslavement, as well as all of those who are perpetrators of enslavement in the same body, then it becomes almost a contradiction in terms beyond the symbolic nature of things.
You teach African studies at the University of Ghana. How might this resolution influence the global teaching of the effects of transatlantic slave trade on Africans?
Well, I think it'll cause people to do more of what they do now, which is focus on transatlantic to the detriment of looking at trans-Saharan. And I feel like that's a major problem. So transatlantic, if we're going to cut off one aspect of the greatest crime in humanity, let's say someone, kicked in your door, burned down your house, killed all your family members, and say the burning is the only part that's the greatest crime against humanity. And it's like, well, what about killing all my family members? What about coming in and robbing me? What about all these other things that were going on? Because again, this is an entire complex. And I feel like part of the issue is we're focused on so-called Europeans as opposed to focusing on all of these Eurasians who have been enslaving Black people, going back millennia. So if we look at it comprehensively, we'll look at the role of the Arabs, we'll look at the role of the Indo-Aryans and what's now called India, we'll look at the role of the so-called Europeans, all Eurasians put together and what they have been doing and continue to do with Black people.
Right.
Again, I think to answer your question directly, it will cause people to focus on the transatlantic portion of it as opposed to look at it comprehensively, as we used to do in classical Kemet. We refer to all these people from the continent of Eurasia as Amu. So whether they came from the peninsula that we now call Europe, whether they came from what's now known as Syria, whether it's what they now call Lebanon, wherever they came from, we had a blanket term to refer to all of these non-Black invaders and foreigners, and it was Amu, and literally it translates to foreigners. I feel like once we get back to an understanding from our own perspective in our own languages, it will help us understand the comprehensive nature of enslavement, not just the Western Eurasians, but across the entire continent of Eurasia, including what we now know as Europe, including what we now know as Asia, as the invaders, imperialists, enslavers of Black people comprehensively. And I feel like part of it is that we don't want to step on the toes of the Arabs who are still enslaving Black people and who are still on stolen land and are actually part of another body called the AU, to the detriment of Haiti that cannot be a full member, but Morocco and other enslavers can still be full members.
Right.
These are major problems.
Obadele Kambun is an associate professor at the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana. We appreciate you giving us the benefit of your expertise. And I still have Professor Kojo Appiagyei-Tuah, who is also at the University of Ghana. Professor, already we're hearing that the European Union and other European powers say that they will object to this resolution, really. And our demand for reparations, does it mean that it's in jeopardy, really? What happens to it if they vote against it? Can we take it to the ICC, ICJ? Where?
Well, within the international human rights and the UN system, there are certain processes and procedures and certain organs and institutions that depend on where the matter is being discussed or addressed. It will determine the extent of the legality that could be attached to that resolution being passed there or not. And so what is happening now is within the General Assembly level. And traditionally, that should have been the most democratic institution or organ of the UN, because that is where each country has one vote. But unfortunately, within the General Assembly, the decisions that are taken, the declarations and the resolutions that are passed there are not binding, legally binding. They are only advisory or recommendatory. So what is going on there, at the end of the day, even if it gets overwhelming support of votes, which is likely to be the case, the question is, who are those who would abstain or who would vote against? At the end of the day, is the majority, it's not about the majority that vote for, but it is those who hold hegemonic influence in international relations, who, when they vote against, are able to collapse the application of this particular resolution that will be passed. And that has happened before. And so in the 70s, we talked about the new international economic order, which was another means to redress past injustices through the slave trade and colonialism. And many other attempts have been made. But most of these resolutions which were passed remain only of academic interest because the big powers voted against it. And so this, what our president is doing, is not something that is the first thing that is being done. And I'm not surprised that the former colonial authorities will say they will vote against it. So when they vote against it, that means that it is just going to be shelved. It's going to be debated in academic circles and the classrooms and so on. But in reality,
I like the fact that that professor's name is Quadro, not John or Peter or some shit. In the chat, but Bakari says, I like this brother. He don't give the nasty ass Arabs a pass. Absolutely, brother Bakari. This is why I had to, me personally, I had to kind of change up me saying Christianity all the time, because it's not just Christianity. And I had to go back to saying the Abrahamics. That's the important thing to say, I think. Talk about the Abrahamics. But it's also important to speak about them pointedly. You Arabs, and the things that you guys did. Let me mix it up this time. Let me start with Sister Cheryl. Sister Cheryl, what say you on, was this what President Muhammad did at the UN? Was that the best platform to do that on? And what do you say to Obadali Kambun and Professor Quadro's discussion on, it's not just the Ma'afa, the transatlantic slavery. There's also sub-Saharan. There's also the slavery on the east with the Arabs. What say you to all of it?
If you could, because I did have to step away for a minute. Just give me a quick synopsis of what the point he was trying to get across to the UN?
The point
I'm sorry.
who President Muhammad was trying to get across?
Yeah.
He just basically was trying to get them to vote on the idea that, and I got to be careful the wording because there's been some misconception with the wording, but if I remember that slavery was the gravest crime against humanity. So he went there to get that acknowledged, which is something that Black folks, Africans have been trying to do for some time. I remember a friend of mine's in college when they mentioned Durban, South Africa. My friend actually was there and saw that the U.S. actually got up and walked out of that. This time they just voted, yeah, the Arab, right? This time they just voted no. So that's what Muhammad was doing, just trying to get it recognized at the UN that, in the international space, that this was probably the gravest crime carried out in humanity. The rest of the conversation with Obad Ali and them was about it's not just the transatlantic slavery, and if they find, Obad Ali in particular finds it very interesting that he just talked about transatlantic. Why don't you bring up what the Arabs or the Arabs did up in the north of Africa? Why don't you mention what the Arabs did in East Africa, et cetera, et cetera? So, Sister Cheryl, with that said, what say you to all of it?
Yeah, sorry about that. So I mean, in situations like this, I like to get Black people to think about, like, if they're like up, and going crazy about whether some non-Black people want to recognize some atrocities that happen to Black people. I just want Black people to just think, what if they did? What if they did recognize it? Like, what if they was just, oh, we're so sorry. Oh, we should have done that. My bad. What if they did recognize it? Then what? Because they would just go back to doing what they do. So I think it's good that
Well,
they
well,
just
real quick, Sister Cheryl, the idea was to set up the idea that reparations are due. So I just wanted to add that piece too.
okay. I like that because um with the reparations thing, I like you like I think just Ken Bond just summed it up. I mean, I mean, multiple times he's said that you shouldn't. I mean, it's great to know that you care. To bring it to the international stage and talk about reparations and all of that. But I mean, to me, it's just I just don't want to because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But like, just reparations, like, what do you? I'm not saying it's not due. It shouldn't happen because we do need to be repaired as a people. But what are we doing? Like, what are we? Why are we wasting our time with these people? So I'm like more on Ken Bond's side with that. Like, it's just like you want recognition, you want validation from like these people, and then what? And then what? You follow up with reparations. Okay, what's reparations? They've never given anything specific as to what they needed specifically. And to me, and then I know some people will say, well, it's something that we need. So if you're against it, then you must be against Black people. Well, no, I just know who I'm dealing with. How long have Black people been asking for reparations? And how many times are you going to beg them? And how many times are you going to lose self-respect begging your enemy for some money or to repair something? Like, you really gotta just, like, in reality, like, in theory, it sounds good, and we know what in your heart what you're trying to do. We understand that, but in reality, this is not going to happen. And if it does happen, you better believe it's going to come with some stipulations. It's going to come with, oh, we're going to have control over this asset or that, or you're going to have to do this. It's going to be some type of compromise. It's going to be something that you're going to have to give back because they're not going to just give you something. You don't get something for nothing. So I mean, that's just how I've always felt. And it's not to say anything bad about people who who advocate for reparations. Because I know where they're coming from. It's a feeling. It's what they feel that we should have as a people. And any people who have been decimated as much as African people have been should get it. But the reality is they're not going to give you something. And if you shouldn't even want something from somebody. You know they're going to ask for something in return. That's all.
I appreciate that, Sister Cheryl. What's up with the chat tonight? Chat is kind of quiet. You know, but Bakari says it's not Arab, it's pronounced Arab, which is a good reminder. Thank you. It's not Muslim, it's Muslim, apparently. But what's up with the chat, man? Let's hear from you guys as far as what happened this week, because it was significant. Whether we agree with it or not, or whether we see the other play, which we'll discuss in the next prompt, that's going down. Like, you know, what are your thoughts about what Muhammad did at the UN?
What are we doing?
And Sister, I gotta mute you because I can hear some noise in the background. And what Obadali and the law professor Quadro were talking about here. With that said, though, I also want to quickly point before I go to Black Steel and Buana. I want to point out how the FBA ADOS types this week, after this happened, they didn't attack America like that. It was America, Israel, and I think the UK who voted flat out no. And most of Europe just abstained, which is to me is a soft no. That conversation was had really well on Kofi, the Black Critics panel the other night, where Brother Bakari and Buana were. But the FBAs are attacking Africa on this, saying that it's undermining their claims, not realizing that that no from America also means no for you. And now we need to, now you guys need to regroup and rethink your stances on this country that you've been jingoing for. But also, interesting enough, and I posted a screenshot of it today, I had an FBA guy over on Haven Bullets video talking about how we're lying, that FBA never was anti-black, anti-African. What are you talking about? It wasn't anti-African. You guys straight up claim you wasn't from no Africa. That's how you said it. Now all of a sudden, is it Kwajo? Oh, my bad. Kwajo is the pronunciation, not Quadwo. My bad. You see, this is why I like to talk to people who know better than me, right? Yeah, but now they're trying to move that goalpost that FBA was always about being African. No, it wasn't. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Let me go to Buana next. Buana, what say you to what you just saw?
Well, me personally, I think it was a brilliant move by President Muhammad. I think that it was the best platform to do it. Anthony made a statement that he's problematic because of his political concerns, and that may be very well true, you know. And we'll get into the man, you know, and his politics personally. But the idea is bigger than the president himself. It is bigger than the transatlantic slavery is bigger than an African president. It is bigger than a Caribbean president. It is bigger than just two men coming or women coming to the floor and addressing the matter. It's bigger than them personally. So whatever their internal politics are, the idea of what happened is much bigger than that. So like I said, people say a broken clock is twice right 2 times out of the day. And on this particular front, I believe Muhammad got it right. And I'll explain why in a minute. As far as Dr. Obadeli Kambon and this professor here, what I would have done first, you know, is see, politicians are not sent from heaven. Like the man say, you know, Trump say he was sent from heaven, you know, or the Christian right say Trump was sent from heaven. Politicians and presidents, they are not sent from heaven. They are not all knowing. So Obadele Kambon, what I would have done as a professional man living in Ghana was to, because I'm sure this issue was raised prior to him going to the United Nations. So I would have personally write the president explaining all the things comprehensively that what he would address. Then if he chose to ignore them things, that's another matter. But to come and play armchair quarterback on Monday morning, telling his audience or this audience what Muhammad got wrong, I feel like he should have wrote a letter to him prior to explaining, because like I say, politicians are not all knowing. And to the front of him, he might just know and understand the transatlantic slavery, because there are many Westerners, Black Westerners, African Westerners in his country right now. And they are bringing and airing these concerns to him. And this is what he hears. So him being a politician, he is taking this to the world and explaining these issues and matters to them. You know, he is not a historian, so he doesn't take that perspective. Now, maybe if Obadele Kambon would have written him prior to, he would have addressed that. But we don't know, and we can't assume him intentionally leaving out something when he may have not necessarily been aware of it at the time when he gave this particular speech. And even after the fact, Obadele Kambon could write in the Ghanaian newspaper how the president left out certain things or some concerns he may have had in dealing with the Arabic slave trade. This particular gentleman as well, this lawyer, he's at the University of Ghana as well. You know, you write to the president explaining the legal issues and implications of the reparations and the slavery argument, so he could take it before the world. And if he chooses to leave these things out of his speech, that's another matter. Now you could armchair quarterback and say, well, I have written him. Here's the letter. Here's why. I don't understand why he would have gotten it wrong, because I personally wrote to the president himself. And even after the fact, he could still go to the Ghanaian newspaper and he could put the legal arguments that he would have said in this interview itself to bring to the awareness of the president. So he would know in going forward, because he has a global platform, even after the fact, even after he leaves the UN. So he could bring up these legal issues and these comprehensive historical issues that he needs to address in going forward. The other thing too is the lawyer person said that, well, the bigger countries said no, that's not true. That's not true. China said that they agreed. So did Russia. So did many other powerful countries. The people don't understand that we are no longer living in a unipolar world. We live in a multipolar world now. There are many other very powerful countries, and I can tell you something. The reason why I say that it was a brilliant move on his part is, for the longest period of time, many of these countries did not understand or know who their enemies really are. And to see who said no, who said yes, who said we agree, who said we're going to remain on a line, it becomes clear before the world. You know, and I think that was a brilliant act, because now you have a realigning, because it's not just a fanfare and just to say, well, it means nothing. Because a lot of Caribbean countries say, well, you know, maybe China should be our friends now. Maybe we need to get other friends from other places, because they don't look at us how these countries look at us. And let me tell you, there was a response to after that vote was given by the United States. Do you know what the response was? The response was no. And they gave a justification for it. They said legally, at the time when slavery was happening, it wasn't against the law. They went further. The tether, because he was a white tether who was talking, representing America. He said the president of the United States has been the greatest president to the Black people in the United States of America. This is what he said. He said that he has been the greatest. He's done more for Black people than any other U.S. president. He said that at the United Nations, after they told the world, no, it's not a crime. We ain't even going to represent and respect your claims of this idea of transatlantic slavery being the greatest claim against humanity. He said, well, the current president has done more for black people than any other president. Now, everyone in the room knows he's full of shit. But needless to say, it is glaring to see all the enemies of the black world and the friends of the black world, or quote unquote friends of the black world, who would have said, no, it's not a tragedy, or tragic situation. We're not going to accept that. We're not going to accept that slavery was the greatest crime against humanity. And there are other people who say no. And great power said no. Great power said, yes, we do believe it. We do believe it's the greatest claim in crime against humanity. Not just, so this legal person just looking at the Western countries being non-aligned or saying no. No, that it doesn't stop there. There are other great countries in the world, big countries, powerful countries who said yes as well. So now that's something to contend with. That's why I feel like it was a strategic move, and I feel like it was a brilliant move on Muhammad's part, understanding that he is not all-knowing. He doesn't know everything. This is why he has a country, and this is why he have thinkers in this country who could assist him in going forward. And maybe his speech will change in going forward and change and talking to other groups of people as well, because he has the audience of the world now in making these kinds of arguments. But that's what I think about this.
Good stuff, Bueno. Good stuff. I'm sure we're gonna reference some of the things you would have said during that response. In the meantime, let's welcome in Brother Bakari. Brother Bakari, how are you this week?
I'm absolutely magnificent, my brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for coming through.
That was a great place for the president of Ghana to say what he said. It's not whether they're going to give you the reparations or not, right? We're talking about what he said. We're not talking about what they're going to do. Hopefully, a statement like that in a place like that should want to motivate Black people, African people to come together. Do I think they're going to give you something? No, I agree with it. I agree with Khalid Muhammad. We're going to have to take it. You're right? And we're going to have to do some repairing for ourselves. But to stand on that and brought it and he brought it to the whole world. Now, I'm going to tell you something that most people miss, because everybody keeps saying that the Ghanaian president focuses on the transatlantic trade, and he did, right? Because that's what most of his people, West Africans, that's what we was got in. But if you go listen to his speech again, he did mention the trans-Saharan slave trade. He did mention the trans-Saharan slave trade, right? He didn't talk about it as much as the transatlantic slave trade, but he did mention it. Now to these brothers, I can't say his name, Cambon, right? I agree with what he said. He wanted to put them Arabs head on the stake right there, and that's what we need to be talking about. To your point, what you said, Koku, and I've been saying this for a while. We focus on Christianity, and Arabs and Islam get a whole pass every time. We only talk about Christianity and white folks. We never talk about what those, as he called them, those Eurasians, we never talk about what they did. We never talk about how the Ottoman Turks came down, and those are the ones who started the invading over there in East Africa. We never talk about that, and we don't talk about those Arabs. We never talk about that. We focus on one thing. And I know if you're in this country and you're only focusing on this country or this side of the world, you can just talk about Christianity. But when you say you're Pan-African and you're focusing on Black people around Africans around the world, period, you can't just focus on Christianity and what white people did and Arabs constantly get a pass, right? And I understand when my good buddy Black Steel be talking about the Palestinians. But that's why you'll find somebody like me, like, shit, man, look what the Palestinians did to African people. Even during the process of them getting obliterated by Israel, you listen to the Black Palestinians, they were talking about how Palestine would treat them still. In their process of being oppressed, the Afro-Palestinians talk about how they were being oppressed by the Palestinians. So it's hard for me, like, to just give them a pass. Can I say I sympathize to see little kids getting blown up. Yeah, you just blowing them up for nothing. Yes, I can say that's a horrible thing. But when we gonna sit back and say, but damn, these same people we caping for blew our kids up for nothing. They separated families for nothing. They robbed and they raped and they did all that to our people. So they're all in the same boat. So when these professors was talking, now when the other guy was talking for the most part, and honestly, I had stepped away for the most part, so I can't speak on what he said. But the speech from the president of Ghana, that was the right place. So instead of us want to reject it and say we're not going to get it, that's not the. I understand that. I understand they're not going to give us a damn. I understand that if you want something, you're going to have to take it. But for him to mention it on that stage should motivate people, should activate us, say, you know what, maybe it's time for us to work together. And if we want something, we're going to have to stick together as a people because the whole world owe us, and we're going to have to figure out a way to get it. Because what I always say is black people don't owe the world nothing but an ass whooping. And on that note, I yield the mic.
I got to drop one of Clue's bombs here. Yeah, I think say what you want to say. It does, whether that was the intended purpose or not. It should have black folks. Like really and truly, that whole FBA ADOS stuff should start to be dismantled by the people, not by the leadership of it, but by the people involved. Because America just showed you, like Buana pointed out too, good point. America, they wash their hands of that shit. There was no laws against it at the time. We good. We are good. So that should tell the FBA and ADOS types, you ain't getting shit. Not that Pan-Africans didn't tell you that already, but now America told you plain as day, don't expect nothing for that, right? With that said, man, Black Steel, you've heard everything and seen everything everyone else had to say. What say you?
So, man, first of all, I agree with the overall gesture, right? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, because the volume of my laptop a little bit. Yeah, I think was the UN the best platform? I think it was. But when I hear these conversations, right, when they say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Right? It seems to me like everybody's going to have a complaint if it doesn't fit their what they think it should look like, right? I understand what the long game is, but at the very least, right? Let's admit this was a crime against humanity. This was something that was wrong. We all know it was wrong. We don't need their recognition, but it seems like what the other African nations are trying to do is play the long game. So I don't necessarily feel like it was a bad idea. I think it was very strategic. I think, but I understand that the way the United States works is that they're not going to pay anything. You know, they usually, which is funny because they still pay reparations for the Holocaust, even though the United States didn't do the Holocaust. When it comes to reparations for what was done to Black people, oh, it was legal at the time, so we don't feel, whatever nonsense they want to say. I can respect the critiques, but I also understand that, I don't understand what the problem is. He just wanted you to say, was this a great crime against humanity? Yes or no? That's it. Yes or no? The conversation wasn't about reparations. We didn't talk about what the Arabs did. Okay, yeah, we know the Arabs did horrible things. But again, he said it was a crime against humanity. Most of the world agreed that's the case. But I think a vote like this, what it really does, it really kind of lets you know who's who, what side you're up against, right? When you look at Europe, and every European country abstained from the vote. Every single one. You had U.S., Israel, and Argentina, of all places, which was one of the countries so many of the Nazis fled to after World War II. It looks like they saw a kindred spirit there. But you get these three countries that just said no. Israel recently actually came out recently and said the Holocaust was the greatest crime against humanity, which is, I hate playing oppression Olympics. I really do. It's not something I enjoy because the Holocaust was a crime against humanity. But just look at how they frame that, right? Hitler's final solution started in 1942. The Germans had been building up to that, but he initially instituted what he called the final solution in 1942, which was his goal was the extermination of European Jews. But even when we talk about the Holocaust, we only mention the Jewish people. But there were 12 million people who died. It wasn't just Jews. We always forget to mention the Slavic people, right? We always forget, the communists and the Roma gypsies and everybody else and the Russians. But why is it that one group of people seems to believe they have the monopoly on global suffering, right? Even if you want to go back to the beginning of the Third Reich, it was 12 years, 1933 to 1945, where you look at what happened with African people, talking about a period of 400 years of slavery, then another 100 years of segregation, Jim Crow. It's, to me, what are we talking about? I don't like to play oppression Olympics. I really don't. But I just feel like it's okay to center ourselves sometimes and speak to what we've experienced. So I don't know. First of all, again, you're not going to get reparations. Just by admitting it was a crime, it does not lead to reparations. But I believe there's a long-term goal that they're trying to reach. And I think that's a good thing. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Yeah, Trigabi mentions Israel's response. By the way, I was wrong earlier. I said the U.S. What did I say? I said the U.S., Israel, and the U.K. voted no. It wasn't the U.K. It was Argentina. So cultured education.
Yeah, the UK abstained. All of Europe abstained from the vote.
Yeah. UK abstained, which to me is a no, by the way.
Basically, yes or no.
Yeah, it's a no. But I said the wrong thing, and so I need to correct it. But Israel's ambassador to Ghana was one of these people who said that the Holocaust was the worst. And I like what Black Steel did there. Israel, the so-called Jews, it was really about 200,000 that died. They used to say it was 2 million or something like that, but even they know that it's not true. They quietly changed it to something less than that. But 12 million people died, including the Slavs, the Russians, the this, the that, and the other, Poles, Gypsies, and no one talks about it. No one brings it up. It's just the damn small hats that get talked about all the time. I thought it was a good platform. I thought even if it, Webb says they used to say 6 million, and then they reduced it to 2 million quietly on a plaque in somewhere. They reduced it, and then some of their own people have come out and said it's more like 200,000 people. But even if it wasn't the intended outcome, like Bakari and others have said, Black folks should have looked at that intently and said, you know something, especially Black folks in America should have looked at that and said, you know what, that's the final word on that. What are we going to do about it now? What are we going to do? Are we going to come together and work something out? Because we definitely can't work with these people. What are we going to do about it now? Is there any last thoughts from anyone on the panel about this discussion?
If you lastly, let me say, if you go to any courtroom All the criminals, when they start and say, well, you can plead guilty or not guilty. Of course they can say not guilty. They criminals. What you expect them to say guilty? We agree that we commit crimes against you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go to Shooter Breeze topic number 4, probably the last topic of the night. Shooter Breeze topic number 4 says, this may derail tonight's main topic. So this is an instance where I put 2 prompts together. Shout out to RBG. Real Black Gentleman in the chat says, Khalid Muhammad says some scholars were hard pressed to find 2.5 or 1.5. Yeah, like I said, some of their own scholars have come out and said it's more like 200,000. So some of that stuff about people getting walked into ovens and all that shit, the gas chambers, some of their own people have come out and said, yo, it was showers. We had a bad lice problem. And to get rid of the lice issue, they walked us into showers.
Let me say this before you. So you saying there wasn't that many oven baked Jews? I thought it was a lot of oven baked Jews.
No, right? So shout out to Real Black Gentleman out there in the chat. Good to see you. Should be topic number 4. This may derail tonight's main topic, which was the one we just discussed. And this is where I put 2 prompts together. It seems clear that Ghana is part of the encircling process of surrounding the AES. This comes with 2. Let me see. No, this comes with 2 links. The first one is going to take us to Twitter. You guys can see my screen. Then we'll play the next attachment. This is from Reuters. It says Ghana is the first African country to sign a security defense partnership with the European Union, according to the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallis. So let's watch it, and then we'll discuss it.
This is the first kind of its kind in African country. And it matters because security in Europe and Africa is deeply, deeply interconnected. The new agreement allows us to work more closely in areas conflict prevention, security. These all matter to our citizens, both in Europe, but as well as here in
and drones to Ghana will significantly of security. It will also enhance Ghana's ability to respond to emerging threats and support our goal of promoting peace and stability.
So that's the guys, I guess you could say, that they're making this agreement between Ghana and the EU. But this brother here has another take. Make sure you guys can see my screen. Yeah, this brother here has another take. Let's take a listen, and then we'll discuss it all.
Ghana has betrayed Africa. Ghana has betrayed Africa, folks. I brought you a story yesterday, which was praising John Mahama, the president of Ghana, for going to the United Nations to put forward a UN resolution about slavery, which was passed by 123 nations, 3 abstentions, 57 abstentions, 3 no's. And I talked to you about the significance of that for laying a foundation for slavery, because it was categorized as the greatest crime against humanity in history. Well, on the same day, Ghana did something that is absolutely mind-boggling. Ghana becomes the first African nation to join EU Security Defense Partnership. Agreement expands cooperation on counterterrorism, cybersecurity, regional stability as threats grow in West Africa. This is just staggering, guys. The same day that they voted on slavery and all of the EU abstained, basically voted against. This is what Ghana has now done. We've been sold out, guys. We've been sold out completely. It's over with. We're finished. So as you can see, guys, Ghana became the first nation to join the EU Security Defense Partnership. They've invited the European Union to do security in Africa from Ghana as a base, The European Union abstained on the vote, all of the European Union stood against categorizing slavery as the greatest crime against humanity. And on the same day, you signed this deal. Sorry, guys, like I just decided to, this is from, I started to turn on my camera. This is my phone because I literally just found this out this morning. And I'm astonished by this. It is just an astonishing situation. I can't believe it. Now, let me explain to you guys why this is so serious. You see, doing a security deal with the EU positions drones, tanks, military personnel, intelligence, surveillance in your country. Like, it means that you're allowing them to do that. They say that they're fighting against insurgents. Do you know how close Ghana is to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger? Do you know how close it is? You do a deal with them. Then you go to Libya. People are getting on alert. I told you about what's happening with Gaddafi. You got the flintlock thing going on in Libya. So you're going to take over Libya. You then bomb Nigeria along the borders of Niger. So you're going to take over that corner of Niger. Can't you see what is happening? They're trying to box in the Sahel states. From every angle, they're going country to country around Africa, all the countries that surround the Sahel states, and compromising them. Doing deals with these presidents, Nigeria, Ghana, Libya. I don't even know what's left. Do you know that the only countries that are not categorically selling these guys outside is like places like Algeria? I mean, we can talk about North Africa, but the only country that is bordered with Niger now and the Sahel countries that has not outwardly come out and said that we are now working with France or the EU to play guys out is Algeria. And listen, who knows what's really going on in Algeria? Listen, dudes, I don't know what to tell you, but I believe that the whole thing that's just happened with the slavery thing was a play to distract you from this. Because this story is bigger than that story. They did it on the same day. Do you know what it means for the European Union to vote against you on the same day that they then sign a deal saying they're coming to protect Africa from terrorists and insurgents that were caused by your neocolonialism? The neocolonialism as a result of slavery that you do not want to acknowledge. Guys, the ignorance of the African is our greatest enemy. We're a bunch of bums. We're idiots because we are so naive. I'm naive. I'm talking about even myself. We're so naive that little platitudes, showmanship, performance is all that we need, that is required to bamboozle the African. Guys, this is on my phone. I'm in my room now. I don't even know what to tell. I couldn't even wait to get out to the garden. I couldn't wait to get out to the garden to talk to you about this because this is big time. Well, people are getting played. What Ghana just did is one of the craziest moves in the entire time that I've been doing my platform. What Ghana just did is one of the craziest moves in the entire time my platform has existed. The European Union, of all the people on the planet, that's who you're doing security with? What are they securing when they are the ones who are the criminals? How do you get a criminal to secure your house for you? Guys, I'm asking you a straight up question. Write it in the comments. How do you get a criminal to secure your house? Ghana, you've betrayed Africa. Ghana, you've betrayed us. What the hell are you doing? Nigeria, I've already talked about Nigeria, so don't, you know where I stand on Nigerian situation. So that is a foregone conclusion that we finished in Africa. Ghana too? So all of that was a show. There is nobody that goes to the United Nations to say that we're fighting against slavery and then turns around to sign a security deal with the same countries that are not supporting you. How about sign a security contract with the countries that voted yes? How about sign a security contract with Russia and China? How about that? How about that? They voted yes to support you. How about you sign a security deal with them? The people signing the security deal with Russia and China are the Sahel states who you are now playing out. Guys, we're a joke in that continent. A joke. I'm so annoyed. I'm furious. I'm furious. I woke up this morning, I had to put on my camera. I saw the report. I said, let me get on the camera. I saw the report this morning. I just woke up. I'm furious. Ghana, what the hell are you doing? That's all that stuff that we're celebrating about UN vote. It's a smokescreen. It's a smokescreen. All of that stuff is just dialogue. That one is talk. This is a signature now. So from now, drones, military stuff from the EU is now legally allowed to be going into Africa via Ghana. Because when you sign a security defense partnership, then you're going to share intel. That's the point. They say that they're coming to help you with your security. So you're going to share information. You're going to share intelligence. You're going to freely allow them to fly drones in your airspace. What are those drones looking for? What are the drones looking for, Ghana? John Mahama. What are the drones looking for? We are the terrorists in Ghana that they needed drones there. The places that are having terrorism, why don't you go and put the drones over there? Because you know you can't. Where do you need to secure? Isn't it Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso and Chad? Go and put the drones in their countries. You know they will never allow you to do that. So you're putting them in Ghana for what? For what? Because you know it's a striking distance to all of these countries. Guys, I'm a layman. Who am I? Who am I? I'm a layman. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy who just sees the obvious, which is what I'm saying. Like the kind of stuff I'm talking to you guys about here is obvious. This doesn't require a degree. It just requires a brain. You see, a lot of the things I was talking about yesterday, and it's actually been coming out, like we are our worst enemies. The white establishments and all of this, these guys are not our enemies anymore. They're just doing what they do. The enemy of the black man, the enemy of the African is the black man and the African. That's who the enemy is, guys. The enemy is not outside, it's within. We've just compromised ourselves. We've just compromised ourselves. Disgusting. Disgusting. I'm the filth. Filth. I couldn't, listen, I read it. I cannot believe what I'm reading. I can't believe it. This is the first in history. It's never happened before. So this is not like you're renewing a deal. How is it that a whole continent is fighting for freedom? The whole of West Africa is battling for freedom. And the people sabotaging that are African countries. Nigeria, now Ghana. Listen, man, you know what? This is actually, let me if I was going to rank the worst things an African president has done in history, what John Mahama has done is actually ranks up there in the top 5. I'd say this is in the top 5. And it has happened quietly when nobody's watching. This is top 5 worst decisions in the history of the continent. What is worse? Somebody tell me what's worse. To sign a security contract with a group of folks who are responsible for the problem. I'm struggling to think what's worse. I mean, listen, somebody in the comments tell me. I mean, maybe I'm sure there might be worse. I'm sure there might be worse. I don't know what it is. Ghana, you have betrayed Africa and the Sahel Alliance, Captain Traore, Assimi Goïta, General Tiani, you've betrayed all of us, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. You betrayed us. I'm keeping it real. This video is real. I hope you can hear me clearly, that the microphone is clear. I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss. Help me out in the comments, guys. I don't know what to say because I can't believe what I've read. Do you know, as I was in the process of recording a video to continue to give information about the amazing, oh, you know what, Ghana, I was about to do that and I opened my phone, I saw the message. It said Ghana has played us out. I was like, what? It's a lie. Can't be true. Then I read it. I said, it's a lie. Then I read it. We're finished. Everybody is against us. They're using every tool. Libya, Nigeria, Ghana, everybody's against us. Kenya, everybody's against us. They're desperate. This is how you know that Captain Traore is a real official dude. These guys are using every tactic. They're using every tactic. In the meantime, we're dancing and singing. I was dancing and singing like a fool. I mean, I'm an idiot. You're looking at an idiot on the screen. I couldn't see the truth, but today I do. I'm a fool. I was bamboozled. While this was going on, I was focused on the wrong thing. Hocus pocus. Hocus pocus. Magic tricks. They tricked the Meg. He was busy making videos about a UN resolution when this stuff was going down next door. On the same day, they bamboozled the Meg. They tricked me. But I've shaken it off now to bring you the facts. So I ask you guys who are watching this video now, you Africans and black folks in America, all over the world, are you a fool? Answer it in the comments. I want you to tell me yes or no. It's a simple question. It's not rocket science. Are you a fool? Yes or no? I was, but I'm not today. I was yesterday, but I'm not today. I'm willing to admit it. So you let me know in the comments because we just got sold out. We just got sold out. Like, after this video, I want you to go on the internet and go and read what Ghana just did. Forget about what the Meg is saying. Go on the internet and go and read what Ghana just did. And then go and read the report of who abstained on the vote. And then compare the list. Don't say, listen, I don't just talk rubbish. Because people are like, yeah, they make it just rubbish. Everything I ever say, you can go and verify it immediately. I don't do rhetoric. I don't just do, rumors. Or if it's a rumor, I'll tell you it's a rumor. And that I cannot confirm it, I'll tell you so. The stuff I'm talking to you about now is facts. Use your brain to put the dots together. Guys are distracting you with Middle East war when this is going on in your backyard. I thought it was a reprieve, which is kind of is. The war is a reprieve, giving Africa a break. Yes, we know. Yes, we know. It's a reprieve. But there's other skullduggery going on. As I keep saying, go and look up what skullduggery means. Put in the comments when you find out the meaning of skullduggery. There's other skullduggery going on, guys. That's why all of that stuff is a distraction. Very soon, the entire West African region is going to be covered with satellites and drones from Europe and America. Covered. They're going to control our media totally, the news totally. All our governments are going to be controlled. All the airspace is going to be controlled. Ground force, the maritime, everything, they're going to lock it down. While they're doing that, they're going to be distracting you with their movies and Afro beats. As they're taking over your lives, they're going to be distracting you with Bonner Boy and Davido, Wizkid, Tenny. That's what's going to be happening. You'll be focusing on that instead of what you should be looking at. This is the realest video I've made in 2026. This video is the realest video I've made in 2026. We're finished in Africa. It's over with. All the videos that I've been bringing out, like I told you what's going on in Libya, right, with Gaddafi and what happened with Flintlock and what they've now done in March. It's mad. They've already done that one. They've locked Libya down. I told you last year what they did in Nigeria. We are finished in Nigeria. It's over with. Tinubu is in England doing speech with King Charles. Didn't they boycott the vote? They abstained, right? Nigeria is signing tax information deal with France. Since when? What has France got to do with Nigeria? Since when? Now Ghana is signing a defense partnership with the EU. The EU, not an individual country, the entire European Union. That means that all the countries, Spain, Denmark, Norway, France, Belgium, England, UK, everybody, Ireland, everybody can be having a field day in Africa, courtesy of our good friends Ghana. That's what it means. It's the EU. It's not an individual country. It's the whole union. Anybody who's still watching this video, I want you to go and sit down and think about what I've just said. Think about it. You're finished. We're finished in Africa. Sit down wherever you are. I'm in the motherland now. I'm not going to tell you particularly where I am in Africa, but I'm somewhere. I'm going to go and sit down in the garden amongst the palm trees. I'm going to go and get one palm wine or coconut water. And I'm going to think, maybe even a star beer or Golda. Chill. Because I don't drink stout. And I'm going to think about this. That's what I'm going to do. It's early morning. That's what I'm going to do. I'll be drinking beer in the morning. Or palm wine. That's what I've been reduced to because of these decisions. The guys are now going to go and start playing games with it. That's what I'm saying. Like, the seriousness of this. That's why I made this video. Because it's so serious. I'm now nervous. Like that, I'm now officially nervous. I'm like, oh God, like this is crazy because these are the guys who I thought were helping us. Like I thought that these were the good guys. You mean that these are the same? Like what? So basically, the guys who you think are your friend, the Ghanaian president is like, wait a minute, what? The decision makes no sense. I want to sit with him and say that you do know that we know what these guys are and what these guys are doing, right? So who are you trying to fool here? Or is it that you think that all Africans are perpetually dumb? Yes, a good percentage of us are stupid, but a lot of us now are not that dumb anymore. So when we see something like this, do you think that we don't know what's going on? Do you think we don't know what's going on? Guys, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel because it's not over. At this point, things are so messed up in this continent that this might be how I have to make my videos at this point because I don't even have the time to go and start doing things and editing stuff anymore because it's too crazy. The historical content, I'm trying to give you historical background information. I don't even have the time. Our Capeland Academy, which I'm building, first Pan-African online educational platform, this is why we need it. So they can understand how we got here. This is why I want to build this thing. I'm telling people, contribute. The link is in this. I'm going to put it in the description again. We need to have this thing because too many of us do not know what's going on. The only reason why I can look at stories like this and really understand it because I know history now of Africa. I know how these things happen, how they begin, how they get played.
All right. He took his time. I sped up the video, but he still took his time to get through it. But he made some solid points. Before I turn it over to the panelists, let me get some of your thoughts in the chat. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, you know what's the heartbreaking thing too? Ghana harbors drone bases that are used by the West to help carry out counters against the AES. So count Ghana as amongst the countries to attack AES. He goes on to say, this was a long time coming as I knew about the drone bases, but the government has put a stamp on their position. Watch what will happen. After they lose to Iran, they will immediately attack AES. He says it's just sad. Excellent example of symbolism and rhetoric. I want to catch something the matron said. Where is it? The matron said, this inability of the African to see the bigger picture is maddening. Didn't we speak about the elites that enslaved us still being in power? This is what you get when you don't put the fox out. I like that comment from the matron. The matron goes on to say they're trying to control and propagandize the world's youngest population. Europeans are dying out, and they are trying to take over the consciousness of the continent, shaking my mother effing head. With that said, man, let me mix it up. Let me welcome in Real Black Gentleman. Real Black Gentleman, how are you this week? Okay, I guess Real Black Gentleman isn't there.
No, I'm here.
How are you this week, brother?
I'm good. How about yourself? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I know. It's been a minute. I'm good, man. Thanks for coming through. As always, what are your thoughts on this, on what you just saw?
Man, I mean, this is exactly why, like, I mean, you have a lot of like Black African nations, right? But they're just fractured and fragmented. And when you have, just various, states, all it takes is for the Europeans and these white folks to just come at you one at a time. If you have 40 states and we're all Black, right? We're all Black and we care about Blackness, right? And you do a deal and, the other state next door, they decide not to. When you look at the territory, when you look at Africa right now, where you have the AES, you know what I'm saying? But the AES is landlocked. And unfortunately, it's just, all it will really take is just one country deep to kind of just like for them to have access to the sea. I mean, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Togo, Benin, Guinea, Senegal, they all like line Mali in Burkina Faso, you know what I'm saying? And the EU and them folks constantly kind of play deal maker, you know what I'm saying? And we see you got some issues, you know what I'm saying? Let's fly around, you know what I'm saying? We can swap it out. We can, you know what I'm saying? We can help you out. You can be your friends and all that. And it's like we know the story, we go through it every year, and then it's just like it really is sad. Like I really wish that we did, as African people, we saw a bigger picture than just like saying, "Oh, I'm a country. I'm a country. I'm Ghana." You know what I'm saying? That don't mean nothing in the real geopolitics. You just a territorial expression. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no nations really in Africa. Just like they're just territorial expressions. And at any given point when, if something were to happen, those boundaries could be shrunken, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I would rather not have countries secede, but when you look at a lot of the Black secessionist movements, they do come from a status of not being able to tolerate the whatever status in their country. I mean, you have Guinea-Bissau. I mean, claim no easy victories. You know what I'm saying? That's where that comes from. They just could not stay in Guinea. And you don't want, countries to secede and have to break away. Biafra couldn't deal with what was going on in Nigeria, and they just said they had enough. South Sudan, I mean, they couldn't deal with what was in Sudan. They had to, and you don't want countries to just break apart. I mean, you think about the turf, business of Sudan, one of the biggest countries. Now it's not, because I mean the Black folks just couldn't deal with what's going on in the majority North. It's better just to go without than just to deal and suffer. And so if when you have an AES and you see, obviously there, the antagonism that has been an exploitation that France basically, at the lead of France has been going through, when they rebuff and say and they actually are doing, especially with, Burkina Faso, they doing the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're actually trying to like truly become self-sufficient and like other people don't get that clue, it's like you don't want this demonization in your own people and be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, and again, when you have like 6-7 different countries, these white folks can play one variant against another, try to say medicine or agriculture or technology or however you can kind of like imagine, and just come on a play and just say, well, we can swap it out, get some little, let's fly around and, you know what I'm saying, like that, while the AES is right at the border. I mean, once I understood like the major philosophical differences between Nkrumah and Nyeri, That's why I believe in regionalism instead of the quote United States of Africa, because the states as they aren't really. I won't want it. I mean, I can understand why some African nations wouldn't want to be in the same boat as other African nations as it stands, because it's just like, nah, man, like it's bad business. And so, I mean, I really do think that as long as Africa is, I think it's fractured. The Berlin, these are Berlin Conference, you know, and that's a Rothschildian construct with all these African states, especially even after, you know what I'm saying, you know, France, West Africa was composed of a lot more than what it is, that, you know what I'm saying, then I'm just saying that like a lot of these states, they're inherently flawed, and the only way to kind of dissolve the fraudulence and this clear backbitedness is going on is you can't just have a whole lot of fake represented states. You gotta come together. And as long as Ghana wants to be Ghana and not have anything to do with the politics of its neighboring countries, besides, you know, bogus ECOWAS and all that, I mean, you're just going to have these white folks come to 80 different black-headed states and try to come and trick it out in 80 different ways. It's 80 different points of failure. So, I mean, it's a shame that this is going on, man. As far as like the whole slavery thing with the vote, I mean, again, that's a funny thing to abstain. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's a, you know what I'm saying? I thought a little slight of wordplay in there. You know how ab meant slave. You know what I'm saying? In the Arabic language, so it's like abstain is like the stain of slavery, and they don't want nothing to do with it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, even though I think that, you know, the way that Japan abstained from it is because like Japan is, you know, but at the same time, why abstain when you just could easily have the fourth option of just not voting? I'm gonna pass the mic.
Appreciate that, real black gentleman. Sister Cheryl, what say you on this? Okay, I guess Sister Cheryl's not there either. Brother Bakari, what say you?
Okay. What I see, that's something I always talk about. We always look for somebody else to protect us, right? When you mentioned the other day on, you said I was on Kofi panel with Bwana and Kofi's in Bwana, right? That's one of the things I talked about. As black men, we're going to have to start looking to ourselves to take care of us, right? We always looking for someone else to do. So them saying they're going to sign some with Europeans to protect them, it's sad, but it's not surprising. Even this brother right here, who was so hard on him for signing with the EU, he said, why not do a deal with China and Russia? You got the article I seen you. You saw what China did when they started working with Elon Musk, right, Koku?
Yes, sir.
China and Russia. Black people, listen, I know for some strange reason, y'all have an affair, y'all have an affinity for China and Russia. No, as soon as they start working a deal with them, Elon Musk, whatever they was talking about doing in Africa, they gonna stop it. Dude, they don't care about African people either. Even the guy who called out Ghana, when we talk, we look outside of ourselves for somebody to do something for us, somebody to protect us, somebody to build for us. Black men, we gonna have to stop doing that shit. If we gonna take care of ourselves, if we gonna do something, we gonna have to damn do it. I don't care where you at. I don't care what part of the world that we're in. What Ghana doing is it foul? Of course. We know people want Ibrahim Traore. We know they want to mess up what's going on over there. Is that foul what Ghana is doing? Yeah. And people can say the speech was a distraction. Okay, let's say it was a distraction, but it don't take away from the speech. It's something that you should be, that we should have a sense that God gave a goat, and we could use this as, maybe we can use it as motivation. You know, we can be like the crow, right? We can be like the crow. You all know the bird, the crow, they have a memory. The crow know they can't beat the eagle. But you know why the eagle very seldom mess with the crow? because the crow will remember when the eagle killed one, and the next time the eagle see a crow, it will be 20, 30 crows going at that one eagle. If the bird got sense enough to come together to defend off and defeat something that's bigger and stronger than them, the crow don't go to the golden eagle to say, help me fight the bald eagle. The crow get other crows. When you look at the super pack of wolves, I did a video on that, even a super pack of wolves, it ended up being several packs together hunting because they were starving. Food was scarce. They didn't go to other animals. They didn't go to the bear and say, let's make a pact. No, they looked inside. And them animals, wild animals, packs that would kill one another over territory, stop fighting so they could hunt and survive. But we got all this God power. We got the nine ether. We got all of that. But when it comes to us, black men, we always looking outside of ourselves. So does it surprise me that Ghana did some bullshit? No, it does not surprise me. It don't surprise me when Nigeria do it. But we on the continent, right? Black men is on the continent, but we will sit there and say, you know what? They finna enslave us again. I don't know if this brother still live in Africa or not, right? But if he still live in Africa, you sitting there complaining, saying they finna enslave us again. Won't you stop them from enslaving you? We can't just constantly talk about what people doing to us and we don't do nothing about it. That's my point. And on that, I yield the mic.
Appreciate that, Brother Bakari. Sister Cheryl says she's back in the chat. Sister Cheryl, what say you to this topic?
Yeah. So, I mean, from what I understand, someone can correct me definitely if I'm wrong. The AES is, where do they get their weapons? Don't they get their weapons from, if they're getting their weapons from Russia and China, I'm pretty sure they're doing some type of deal where they're getting a lot of their equipment and stuff from them. But I guess I say that just to say that sometimes, well, first of all, we got to realize what an ally is. An ally versus a friend. Um, Sometimes in the moment when the situation is dire, you rely on allies because the immediate situation calls for that. It doesn't mean that black people can't do for self, because y'all know me, I'm all for that. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I mean, if you're trying to fight a larger power and you're relying on sometimes that happens. It happens like that sometimes. But that doesn't make them that doesn't mean they're your friends. And that's why it's good to differentiate between your allies. Who's your ally and who's actually there for you? Who's your friend? So I mean, that's what the AES is doing, and I think what they're doing, I don't like it, but I think it's necessary because look at what the US is doing, like with non-AES, countries in Africa. So I mean, they're really doing their thing over there. They're moving in. So I mean, you do what you got to do. I mean, it's that simple. Um, it's not, it's not the way that a lot of us would like, but I kind of think it's necessary, unfortunately, because yeah, this is crazy. I'm not saying I can't believe that Ghana and Nigeria would do things like this. Because we already know they do stuff like this. So I mean, that's just what it is. That's the nature of war. So.
Appreciate that, Sister Cheryl. Just quickly, Trigger Happy kind of addressed that sentiment you had early on in your response. He said, also, I want to make clear for any detractors, AES signing anything with a Western country is not the same. You're talking about a sovereign country versus a neo-colonial one. AES is sovereign. He says, so AES can't be a Russian puppet or a Chinese puppet or an American puppet. They make the best deal for their people. That's basic positive neutrality. Ghana isn't doing this here. So I just want to point that out, that Trigger Happy did address that earlier in the chat. With that,
Coco, I ain't
yes,
trying
sir.
to cut you off, but just do me one favor. Whenever you get a chance, please bring that article for these people to see what China is doing as soon as they started working with Elon Musk in the U.S. and what they're doing to Africa.
All right, I'll try to do that.
You ain't got to do it tonight. I'm just saying, whenever you get a chance, ensure the African nations stop China and Russia from making their weapons because they said they was getting subpar weapons from them and they had to start making their own.
Yeah, okay. Bakari, I'll bring that topic next week for sure. With that said, let me hear from Buana next. Buana, what say you?
Yeah, so here I am. Here's where I am with this. So before the brothers and sisters reach any conclusion based on this particular guy in this video, before you arrived at any conclusion, let me just add more facts to what this man is talking about. So first of all, this is not a bigger issue than the transatlantic slave trade, first of all. And I think that people are trying to remove the argument somewhere else because the importance of this issue. This issue started in the 1400s and it continues to this day. So it's a much older claim and issue that we have going on in terms of the transatlantic slavery, rather than what a current government in Ghana is doing right now. Governments are continuous. The next president of Ghana could do just the opposite of what Muhammad is doing right now. He has 5 years in government, and based on what the people decide, they could choose another leader who choose to work with someone else. That's the first issue that I have. The second issue is Ghana doesn't only primarily have a relationship in terms of security with the EU. They have a relationship with Japan. They have a relationship with China, with Canada. 2 countries that they want. I think that China said, no, China abstained from concluding whether slavery was a crime against humanity, and so did Canada. No conversation on that. But he chose to use the EU because the EU is a trigger point. But Canada is also a colonial country too. They had slavery in Canada too. And I talked to Canadians. They had slavery in Canada too, by the way. But they also have a security relationship with Canada. Not only them, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, the Ivory Coast, Benin, and Togo. So the Ivory Coast, Benin, and Togo is interesting African countries, by the way, because they also have security relationships with the United States and European countries as well. Big supporters of these countries. But they still have a security relationship with Ghana and the AES countries. So some governments are continuous, number one. Number two, you don't only have to have one relationship with one security partner. You could also have relationships with other security partners as well. Muhammad stays going to Russia. Muhammad has a great relationship with Vladimir Putin. They may not have signed a contractual deal right now, but they have a great relationship. Some countries are aligned, some countries are non-aligned countries. And sometimes you don't always have to show your hand and who you have a relationship with and who you're dealing with. But this person chooses to make this a stick point because of what Muhammad did before the UN. And let me also say this. Kwame Nkrumah had a relationship with the United States and the United States companies as a Pan-African person when he was in power, understanding after he graduated from Lincoln University and understanding the conditions of the Black people in the United States of America, he still had a relationship with American and American corporations. Does that make him a traitor? I don't know. Right now, we have an ambassador in this country, a Black man called Herschel Walker, right? The United States, in terms of the transatlantic slavery, said, no, we don't have nothing to do with it. Your ancestry don't mean nothing to us. Did the Bahamas throw Herschel Walker out and say we don't have no relationship with her? No, that would be to our disadvantage to do that. You know what I mean? sometimes there's complexities in relationship. I understand we want to have this black and white world, but the truth is the world is very gray, and there are, until the African countries build up militarily and creating their own things that they, or what they need to protect themselves and do things, they're gonna have relationships with people we like and people we do not like. The AES country right now, they have a nuclear options. They have Russia in there and they have North Korea in there as well. North Korea in there, giving them security advice. So if these people decide to bombard or quote unquote surround, the AES countries, they build in their technology and weaponry by the assistance of greater powers in the world as well. So it'll just be a fight. Black countries fighting black countries if they decide to do that. But I'm saying it's more complicated than just black and white. Just as Ghana has a relationship with the EU in terms of security, they still have a standing relationship with Burkina Faso and the AES countries as well. So I mean, listen, man, you won't always get it the way you want it all the time. And until we get there where we can operate completely independently, we have trading partners that we like and we don't like. But it's not to take away from the fact that the claim of what President Muhammad did in the UN is not of a non-substantial issue. That issue started in the 1400s and it continues to 2026 when Obadele Cambon say that if you are locked up, you are treated much like a slave in the United States right now. You know what I mean? So and the ideas or the implications of empire and colonialism still stands in all throughout the Western world and all throughout Africa as well. So you can't just disregard it because one president decided to do something which you don't like. Whether he get it right and he may get it wrong, but he is not going to be there forever. One day he will be removed from office and be replaced with someone who may be completely opposite from him. Just as in the United States, Trump is in office right now. He has 3 more years, and who replaces him might underwrite everything he do and go in a completely different direction. But what will still stand is what happened to us during the transatlantic slavery and the effects of that. So that's not a bigger story. So I don't want this guy to try to displace or make it seem like it wasn't a big deal to talk about it. It's just simple. No, it don't go like that. It don't go like that. I don't believe it go like that. But these are the things I wanted to add to the discussion before the brothers and sisters conclude on this just one video. They need to know these things. I'll leave it alone.
But I appreciate everything you said, but I will push back a little bit. I saw, who was it? J.D. Vance doing an interview, I think, with Tucker Carlson. No, it was Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz was saying that, basically he was saying, we want our friends of America, to be in positions of power in these different regions like Iran, etc. Right? We want our friends to be the leaderships. We don't want our enemies to be the leaders. I say that to say, for Ghana to, and what Muhammad did was great with the UN. But I say that to say, to sign a deal with the EU, which would involve the US, do we consider as so-called sovereign nations, do we consider the US our friend? I wouldn't do that. I know Bakari and even myself, I'm not too big on the China, Russia thing that a lot of black folks tend to lean on, but I get strategic. I get you might need partnerships, but the EU partnership, when we know they are enemies or they see the AES as enemies, they are not our friends. Why make that deal? Why not, like the gentleman said, make the deal with at least the guys who aren't your open enemy, right? A strategic deal, make a good deal. What would you say to that? The US is not our friend. The EU is not our friend historically. Why not make a deal with someone else who's more so
because countries don't have permanent friends and they don't have permanent enemies. They have permanent interests. And if you could get quote unquote friend, and I quote unquote with this, to provide you military support, drones, and all that technology. You send it to your country and have your technicians and your scientific people study the what went into these kinds of things, how it's built, all these things. You could do these things yourself. You could replace them. Yeah, I mean, they're there to stay forever. You learn off of it, and I ain't trying to be strategic. The Chinamen, let me tell you what the Chinese used to do. The Chinese would come into the United States of America, and you notice the Chinese always have cameras on them, taking pictures every day. They taking pictures because what's the word now? They re-engineer. They go back to China and re-engineer a whole lot of the technology that they see inside of these Western countries. That means that if they are assaulted or if they have to defend them, they're ready to have their technocrats re-engineering these things in these countries. I don't know why Muhammad would have done this. See, I am not in this position, but he could be operating strategically. You know, I'm just gonna say the man is a corrupt man, and he trying to undermine the AES because he has a good relationship with Traore. I'm not saying that he gonna betray him tomorrow. Sometimes things may appear on the face of it. On the face of it, it may seem weird, but you are sitting in certain rooms and you don't know what certain conversations was being had. So anyone could interpret on the outside of it how the situation looks. But like I say, countries don't have permanent friends or permanent enemies. They have permanent interests. You know what I mean? So I just think that the brothers and sisters, before they conclude, you know what I mean, just look at the situation. Put yourself in the position of a president. Put yourself a person who's governing a country itself. You know, they're going to be different. They're going to be very complex matters that you have to figure out, and you have to walk a thin line in some things. And you may not do things people going to always like. You may not do things that's completely popular. You know what I mean? But for the long term, he may see some advantage in including these people in the discussions. Now, I may say, standing from where I'm standing, I wouldn't do a deal like that. Just as right now, Herschel Walker is in our country, and the United States said no to reparations. Am I going to throw him on his, send him, close the United States embassy and send him back to the United States of America? Will that be advantageous to my country? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, so I just want the brothers and sisters just to consider the details of what's happened before they conclude on Muhammad and just rail the judgment on him. It's a little bit more nuanced than how it appears. I believe, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we mightn't kick out Herschel, but I damn sure ain't accepting no deal that he's bringing on behalf of the USA. You know, I feel you. I feel what you're saying, Buana, but I don't know if that's truly a Pan-African outlook. If you know that these people are trying to get at the AES, you're now making a deal that's going to get them closer to taking out the AES. If we really, every week we do a shout out here on the show, and oftentimes the shout out is to Traore. If we're really checking for Traore, that deal is detrimental to Traore and them. That's all I'm trying to point out. And we have to be mindful of who we partner with sometimes. Also, we're supposed to know this by now too. You're not going to, what's the term again? Retro-engineer what America and them is bringing to you. Because they ain't going to let you have access to that. They consider that national security. You ain't going to sit down and figure out what's under the hood of that drone. That's just not how it goes anymore.
Cool. It's done, brother. No. I gotta interrupt you, brother. It's done all the time. BYD. I give you an example. I give you an example. BYD right now, right, is competing with Tesla, but BYD is a re-engineered Tesla, and it's made much cheaper than the Tesla right now. What does that do? That undermines the whole Tesla thing. You know what I mean? In terms of the billing of transportation and cars and things like that. Right now, BYD is eating Tesla's lunch, and Trump had to personally. He didn't ban. I didn't think he didn't ban BYD. The cars is being made. He put a moratorium, or he put the tax so high for BYDs to come into the country, because what it would mean is the Chinese cars would. More Chinese cars would be on American roads. That's bad for the car industry in the United States of America. But capitalism is going to take over anyways, because when Trump goes, the next person say, no, we need to allow free enterprise, and we need to allow these cheaply made cars to come into the American economy, so Americans could drive, get cheaper, but they operate just like they're cheaply made, but they operate better than Teslas. You know what I mean? So that money is not going to stay in the American economy. It's going to go back to China. This is the what I talk about, re-engineering. Re-engineering. But that's what I mean about that.
No, I mean, not to go back and forth here, but BYD didn't really re-engineer the Tesla. The Chinese have been on the edge of technology themselves for a little while now. But even in that story, what you told, look what the U.S. did. The U.S. put basically a ban on you can't buy a BYD in America.
For now. Capitalism is greedy, Coco. For now.
Yeah, but warfare is something different. They ain't gonna let you sit up. And I know Bakari always says, don't talk about what they ain't gonna let you do. I'm just saying, you gonna have to take one of them downed drones and reverse engineer that yourself. They ain't coming in to teach you how to build that shit. That's just my point too, right? Cheryl says the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Not always. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your damn enemy too. But Bakari will tell you that, I'm sure.
Thank you, Koku. Thank you very much. Because I do not live by that. The enemy of my enemy is just mine. Both of them can be my enemy. And I can get out the way and watch them kill each other. And we supposed to be in a position to take over. But since we're not in a position to take over, and we have become children of the world to everybody, looking for everybody to do for us while we do nothing, we are looking for somebody to say, they are our ally. These great allies. Russia was allied with the Congo when Patrice Lumumba was killed, right, Koku?
Yes, sir.
What did Russia do when France and them sellouts killed Patrice Lumumba? Tell me what Russia did. I'm gonna wait, and we'll keep waiting because they did nothing.
Can I say something just real quick? So, like, I'm not denying anything that you're saying. I'm just saying if you have a better solution, then you can bring it to us. Because this situation kind of reminds me a little bit of how, you know, I think we had a discussion about this one time about how AI, AI is bad. We shouldn't be doing AI. We're Africans. We can find a different way. But there are platforms on the BB2Me website that use AI, and they use it for their own purposes. Now, the AI wasn't something that was created by us, but we use it, and it was created by someone else. But I think until someone comes up with a better plan, if you have a better solution, I think you use what you have, but I don't think you get attached to it. So I think it's similar in that way. And I'm not saying, historically, oh yeah, they're our friends, let's trust the Russians, let's trust the Chinese. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they're already using, like, I'm looking at an article right now. The AES is already, they're still using weapons from non-African people. So I mean, I'm just trying to figure out a way around it. Like, if you have a better solution, you can bring it to us at any time. But right now, Africa is so compromised. I I'm just trying to find something, and I don't, I don't see what I know what the history is, but we can't keep being emotional on these things. We have to like this. These are things that are happening in real time. So what do you do right now? What is the solution right now? And I think that's what the AES that's what they're facing right now. It's a challenge. I think it's a challenge. I'm not saying, oh, we should rest. We should rest with China. We should rest on Russia. I'm just saying when these things are presenting themselves to you in real time, what do you do?
Sure, we are always our best solution. We ain't never, when our mind on YouTube or whatever we do, when black people talk, it's never what black people can do for black people. It's always someone else, what someone else. And I'm not even saying you can't have an ally. That ain't what, but we always look for somebody outside of ourselves first. And for me, that's a problem. And I understand your article, but we went over the article on this channel. And African people talk about reverse engineering. What Bawana talked about is reverse engineering those weapons they was getting from China and Russia and other countries, because the African leaders said those countries are sending them subpar weapons that does not work well. So they had to learn to work on them. And now countries are starting to make their own. Yes, they were still getting them, but though ain't nobody. I want people to understand, think war strategy. Ain't nobody gonna ever give you nothing where you can ever compete with them and stop them when they want to dominate you, right? So,
right, but I not understand that. I'm just saying, are they reverse engineering on a scale that's going to be competitive with the people that they're fighting against? Is what I'm saying. Like, just like if they are, what does that look like? I know you're saying that, we can do these things ourselves, but I'm looking for, and I know that we can, but I'm looking for, what does that look like? That's all I'm saying. And I'm not denying anything that you're saying, by the way. I'm just saying, when you are faced with these things right now, what do you do? This isn't you see, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
right now, what do we do?
I understand. And right now, sometimes you just have to do. I didn't say nothing about icon file. That's first of all. And second of all, you the one who said you ain't on the front line. You ain't gonna fight them white folks. Let you cook, so you can shut the hell up.
Wait, what?
So you can shut the hell up. So my point is, right? How can we ally with other people when we can't ally with ourselves? And it always talking about, right? Even here, because I'm not just talking about the African nations. When black people here all over, so the first thing they do, black and brown, our allies. We never look to ourselves and say, you know what? Eventually, we're going to have to stand on our own and do something. So I want to make it clear. I'm not just talking about the African nations. I'm not saying you don't need an ally, or we shouldn't have an ally. What I'm saying is our first choice at one thing, at something. We're not the first business we go to, and I ain't talking about the people on this panel. We're not the first business we go to. We're not the first nothing we do. We always look for somebody else. We always look for somebody else's first. Let's go get some African food. Well, I ain't never had African food. I prefer Mexican. Let's go to the Mexican restaurant. That's what the majority of people, whatever it is, it's not just this, right? It's not just this that I'm talking. I'm talking about everything within the black culture throughout the diaspora, whenever, from the continent to here to wherever. We look for other people before we look for ourselves. And I just want us to one day say, you know what? We are going to ally with ourselves, and we can come together. Because if we're allying with people, so then we're going to be complaining saying Russia and China got all the natural resources from Africa. That's all Africa have to get, because we haven't, through all these years, have not tried to build a military. We have not tried to do anything. We sit back and we wait. So then people take what we have. And the only thing I'm saying is, why don't we think it's possible that these people have the exact same idea when we are looking for them first? It's almost as if we're trading colonizers for colonizers. It's just a different one. And that's that's all I'm
I think
saying.
we have I think we have the capability, but that capability may be 10 years in the making. You know, it may be 10, 15 years in the making. I think it's there. But in terms of what, and I understand what you're saying. Like I agree with that. We always do look to other people, but I think what's happening with the Sahel states, with the AES, and what's happening with Black people as a whole, is they're a tad bit different. It's a little bit different, and I think we need to keep those things in context, because if you're talking about Black people as a whole, diaspora, you're absolutely right. But when you're talking about the AES, you're talking about sovereign nations. You're talking about nations in Africa that are doing something that collectively they're doing the opposite of what everyone else on the continent is doing. And so I think that needs to be recognized. And I think in terms of being at the same playing field as other nations on a war, like, on a scale that everybody else is at in terms of war, that's going to take some time. It's going to take some years, but I think it's definitely possible. But I think what they're doing right now is what they have to do. And I don't think they have that mindset that they have to rely on other people. I think they're just being strategic, as opposed to countries like Ghana and what was the other one?
Nigeria.
Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire. That they're not doing what they're doing. So I think you got to keep things in perspective. So I think we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can still do what we have to do in terms of war militarily, in terms of becoming sovereign ourselves as a people and as a diaspora, and we can still acknowledge that we need to do what we need to do in the Sahel state. We can do both.
And you know what? And you're correct. And I support the Sahel states. I Traor, Niger, Mali, and it bothers me that all of the African nations have not come with, all the Black African nations have not come with have not joined those three. I know Botswana say they're gonna do what they can, but it bothers me. And like when I said, so this is what I'm saying, Cheryl, and everybody on the panel. I do think you'll need an ally, right? Not gonna say you don't need an ally. I just want us to look at us first sometime. I want us to say, put us on a pedestal the way we put other people on a pedestal. We put China on a pedestal. See, people think, okay, did y'all see when China went out with their great some military machine they made that can shoot 30 missiles at one time, and they went to show the world? Did y'all see that? You know what happened when they went out to show the world? Not one missile came out. Not one. Not one. See, a lot of people, we thinking we are smart, right? So now I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna talk about the brother here that just made the plastic, made the plastiline, the gasoline out of plastic. Did y'all see that, young brother?
You talking about Julian Brown?
Yes, that young brother. Yeah. Okay, now I'm not, watch this, I'm gonna say this first. I'm not comparing who did it first. It don't matter who did it first. A brother in Ghana did the same thing. A young brother in Ghana did the same thing. He made gasoline out of plastic, right? Since we're so focused and we always run to somebody else first, we never trying to come together and do it. Who do you think will end up using that brother here from the United States or the brother from Ghana? Now, I think we should, but we ain't in that position, I guess, money or whatever. We supposed to be figuring out a way to get those two young brothers together so they can make what they have done, so they can make it better, and we can be in control of that, right? But since we always look outside of ourselves and we put other groups of people on a pedestal, it's going to be Russia or China or the US or anybody, somebody from Europe who going to have both of those brothers who can, if they want to use that, who going to have both of those brothers doing something for them while we're sitting back and because we looking outside of ourselves. That's all I'm saying. I want us to look inside sometime. That's it. Just look inside.
I think it's telling that Ghana doesn't have a formal alliance with the AES, but you're aligning yourself with the EU. I troubling. That's troubling. Even if you had aligning yourself with the AES, I know the AES is working with Russia. I know that, and I get it. It's a strategic partnership between sovereign nations, but you know that you're working with folks, right? The U.S., Israel, this, that, and you know you're working with folks who are trying to get at the AES. That's really my problem. The other thing I'll say too before I move on, it looks like Black still left. So the other thing I'll point out is we will always be 10, 15, 50 years behind everyone else if we only laying up with others for them to do the work for us. We got to get to the point where we're doing the work for ourselves, man. And unfortunately, these groups ain't going to teach us how to do it. At least not that I've seen. They're not going to teach you how to do it. You just got to just sit down, change your curriculum, right? Right now, Africa carries out a British and French type of education that's only meant to make followers, not leaders, just like the Caribbean. Like, we got to change that stuff. Those little things, we got to change that stuff. And we got to start investing our young minds into science and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, quick shout out to Lord of Slaughter, who's in the chat. I didn't shout you out earlier. Shout out to Lord of Slaughter. He says, we have the scientists in the diaspora and on the continent. So I just wanted to shout you out. I think I don't want to add something. Go ahead.
Yeah. The only thing I would say to Brother Bakari is we are on this panel and we try to do our best work here on this panel and outside of this panel as well. And your voice, whether you know it or not, is carried because, hundreds of people listen to this show, believe it or not. And I understand in the greater world that you see it with your physical, your eyes, that we don't work together and things like that in that nature. But your work is to share your voice and your perspective. And you are big on HBCUs. And you don't know who is listening to this panel and would have considered to say, I was going to send my child to the PWI, but you know what? Brother Rakari convinced me. So let me look to myself and send my child to HBCU. You know what I mean? Sometimes you may not have the effect that you want in terms of globally, but your message is to do your work. Sometimes you can't look to the left and the right. You just have to focus on what you're doing and do your work. Your thing was Black business. You don't know how much people been impacted by that message or going to Black businesses first and foremost. So your job is to persuade the people who you could persuade to do that work. And if everyone was to do that work, we'll have a greater impact. When you talk about women and men relationships, see, Cheryl Eves used to be a hardcore swirler. No, I'm kidding, Cheryl Eves. But I'm saying that you don't know. That's wild. You don't know who Cheryl Eves. It's love, man. It's love. I'm messing with you. But you don't know who would have been convinced to take a second look at the Black woman and how you hold in such high regard. I go on fire. Maybe take a second look at the sisters and be easier on how. So you have to do your work on where you planted. So don't discount your work as well. It ain't doom and gloom, brother. All we doing work out here, and collectively, that's all we could do. We can't, unless we get on in stages like the UN, we have to grow where we planted and do our work collectively. And we'll convince them, even if it means 1 by 1 and 2 by 2. So continue to do what you're doing, brother. Your voice is needed. And it ain't doom and gloom, brother. You know, there are others who gonna listen to your voice and take it and make it constructive for themselves. They will look to each other first if you continue with that message. And I just wanted to encourage you in that. All right, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Can I answer his question, Koku?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You know, I normally say the private HBCUs because they were the ones back in the day, because they're private, that really, really, really taught Black power. And I still say some of them, but Morehouse disappointed me when they put a damn picture of Joseph Smith in a damn chapel. I'm like, oh my God. Now, all the people from Morehouse been complaining about that. I don't know what they getting, but Cheryl put in there, hopefully not Morehouse. I didn't even read that, Cheryl, but they put a damn picture. Y'all know that Mormon Joseph Smith, in a big painting of Joseph Smith in their damn chapel. Now, I learned some from Koku about Lincoln University and what they're teaching. I learned something about Jackson State, where my son go, how he showed me the festival on campus, and the school did a whole week where they were paying homage to the African god Oludumare on campus, and they had a festival for Oludumare on campus. So I would say some of them, they're coming around. I heard there's one teacher at another school, other HBCUs, when they come, the first thing that they have to study in their Black history is Marcus Garvey and read the autobiography of Malcolm X, then go to Dr. King. Say that's going to be some of the first thing they teach, because they say, especially talking about spending your money Black. So it is some. So I would say Jackson State, because I'm a Jackson State fan. You asked me which one I would recommend. North Carolina A&T is another one that's a public that was really, really big on. I had an article from this guy who was traveling around the country, going to HBCUs and see which ones talked about the Black Power movement the most. And he said schools like North Carolina A&T. He said Tougaloo. It was I can't even remember. I have to find my article. I want to say Jackson State was one. He named like 10, and he said Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. But I remember North Carolina and Tougaloo more specific, because they taught a little more. That Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X was respected more on those campuses than Jesus. And you know how Black people love their Jesus. So, you know, you just have to find the right one. They coming along.
I just want to, thank you, Brother Bakari. I just want to add this one last thought for everyone, that it's really not a good look to go to another person and ask them to do the work for you. What's a better look is you tried, you reached a roadblock, a stopping point, you can't figure it out, and then you go to a man and say, hey, how do I get over this here? Africa's not even doing that part. Black folks as a group, we're not even doing that part for the most part. When it comes to science and technology and stuff like that, we're not doing it. I saw someone mention something the other day. Who was it? Was it Mia Motley? It was someone who mentioned that there's not one African on the continent who's creating a smartphone. Meanwhile, all the resources to create a smartphone is coming from the continent. That's a problem. That's a problem of waiting for someone else to come and do it for you. No, you start to do it. When you hit that roadblock, you make a strategic partnership with your friends, or at least with the people who aren't your open enemy, and get some shit popping. Is there any last thoughts on this prompt before we go to our shout outs this week? All right, let's go to our shout outs then. I know Black Steel probably got tired and dropped off. I apologize, Black Steel. We went overtime this week. But next week we'll try to get it back in check. Let me just go right down the line. Real Black Gentleman, what would you like to shout this week?
I don't know if y'all mentioned this before. Y'all heard about the Afro Man?
Oh, right. Yeah. Talk about it.
Yeah, I guess allegedly, not allegedly, the fucking sheriffs in this county ran up in his house, busted his door and his gate to his house and all that. And he wrote a couple songs about it, and I guess they took him to court. The sheriffs took him to court saying that they because he wrote a song about it, and they said that he defamed their character, and he won the case, and he wrote another song. I'm gonna give a shout out to Afro Man. You know what I'm saying? He had a surveillance in his house, and it actually has the footage of one of the officers cutting the power off, and then the screen, the camera shot goes blank. So it's they stole his money. They said they ate some of his mom's cake, they ran up and raided his house and stole his shit. And so give a shout out to Afro Man for, you know what I'm saying, speaking out, you know what I'm saying, standing up, you know what I'm saying, not being shaken. That, you know what I'm saying?
Appreciate that, RBG. I will point out, kudos to Afro Man for that, but I will point out Afro Man is a rabid MAGA, or blagger, as Bakari would call him, rabid MAGA. So, but shout out to him all the same. But Bakari, what would you like to shout out this week?
I believe he's a blagger, but he's funny. He Afro Man is funny. I ain't know he was blagger, but I believe it. But shout out to him, because I'm gonna tell you something else he got off with one time. He was doing a concert that happened in Ohio. Cheryl, if you're talking about Afro Man, that happened in Ohio. He was doing a concert in Mississippi on the Gulf Coast down around Biloxi, Gulfport, right? And a white girl jumped on stage to sing the song and charged at him, but he didn't know what she was doing. He slapped her down. He turned around and slapped her down. They tried to sue, but he got off because he was like, he didn't know where she was coming. He didn't know why she was coming up there. He didn't tell her to come. He didn't tell her to come on stage. I want to give a shout out to everybody on the panel. I want to give a shout out to Cheryl. It was good. I don't think we've been on the panel together in a while. Cheryl, it was good being up here with you. Shout out to, of course, Koku for being a good host as usual. And Koku, you're right. That's what I was trying to say. Maybe I said it wrong. You can't constantly go ask people to do stuff for you, and you ain't doing it. That's what I was trying to say when I say we need to look inside of ourselves first. But before I leave, I have one question I want to ask. Since we're talking about this, do anybody want to get some land? I'm getting 3 acres. We have 3 more lots, 3 more 3-acre lots right next to mine. And mine going to be used for the people. I have some chickens, some goats. I got a buddy right next to me. He got 3, so we're going to use that 6. We're going to that's going to be 6. We're going to put a 1-acre lake out there and fill it up with fish. I was just wondering if anybody was interested in, doing some of the things that we say we want to do to be able to take care of ourselves. This land is in Georgia, but then I'm going to Mississippi, back home where I'm from, and get land, because that's where I'm moving to. We'll have more there. But I'm just saying, is anybody interested in that? That is something we can talk about offline if anybody is if anybody's interested. That is something we can talk about offline. Hey, you know something? Lord told me to sell it to an African country. I'm going to tell you something, man. When you get this land, something I didn't know, that if you have a little spot where you live and you got, I think it's an acre, you can become sovereign right there on your acre. Hey, it's this place, if you look, it's a place it's in Powder Springs, Georgia. But his house, their address is Cucumaville, Georgia. It is something they made up. They are from Nigeria, and they literally just got that little spot as Cucumaville. And it is something, I don't know where the name Cucumaville come from. They have a Nigerian flag. They have another flag out there, and they're Cucumaville, Georgia. That's the name of the spot where they live. It's Cucumaville. And it has it has a zip code. I just wanted to say that, man. But thanks for letting me speak on here.
Yeah, Babacar, before you go, can you give them, well, I don't know if you want to do it publicly, but drop it in the chat, your email address, so people can reach out to you.
Okay. I put it in the
Yeah,
chat.
with that said, man, yes, sir. With that said, Sister Cheryl, what would you like to shout out this week?
I'm gonna shout out this young man. His name is Nathan Martin. He won the LA Marathon this past. Well, we're almost out of March, but this March. So LA Marathon is like one of the biggest marathons, and yeah, he won the whole thing. Black American guy. You know, he was a high school coach. I mean, he he beat out everybody. It was
He beat the
amazing.
Kenyans in a marathon.
He beat the Kenyans. He beat Kimani Kamau.
Damn.
I was like, whoa, that's amazing. Like I've never, because they're the Kenyans are known for crushing all of the marathons. So yeah, shout out to him. That was amazing.
Wait, was that the brother who ran down the Kenyan and beat
Yes.
him? Like, okay, yeah, they showed some extra video where some big booty black chick was distracting the Kenyan guy, made him run the wrong way or something. And,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. They showed some. She was running, like I guess, down a path for spectators or something like that, and he ran behind her, and they had to call him back and make him run back the actual route. Yeah, look that up. I promise you'll find that video. But shout out to that Black American brother all the same. Shout out to him all the same. With that said, Buana, you got it, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I second Shirley's statement. Shout out to the Black American brothers, because that's a feat. Them Kenyans be running, because they hungry. But shout out to the Black. That's a feat, man. That's great. That's great. That's great news. The impossible can always be accomplished, man. And that's good that he was able to do that. Shout out to, I gotta say it again. Well, let me say deal with Afro Man, because I was keeping up with that. It was hilarious, and I didn't know he was blagger. But shout out to Afro Man for winning this court case. He should have won this court case. I don't like how he was treated, but if he's blagger, whatever. But needless to say, shout out to Muhammad for that speech. That was a very good speech. I think it was a strategic move on his part in showing the world the opinions of different countries in the world when it comes to Black people, and that is a needed thing to be done. And even if it's just on symbolism alone, the symbol needs to be carried across. People need to see it. What they do with it, it's in their arena to do with it what they will. But I think that was needed. And by the way, guys, the swirler joke with Shirley's, it was only a joke. Shirley's is a happily married woman to a happily Black man, a happily beautiful Black baby. She's never been a swirler. It was only a joke. So don't let it go too far. I just want to make that very, very clear. But shout out to all the brothers and sisters on the panel. You all did great work and made very valuable contributions. I'll see you all next week.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that, man. Shout out to all of you guys for making this a good episode. Shout out to Black Steel, who had to leave early, I'm assuming. We'll be back next week.
He was running from me.
We'll be back next week. But what I want to shout out in particular is the Discord. I'm finding that the topics are slowing down a little bit. I know there's some topics I haven't gotten to, but that doesn't mean we slow down to a grind, to a halt. So shout out to the Discord. You guys join the Discord if you're not already. Join the Discord. Post your topics that you like to discuss. And I got to say this too, actually. Try to be present for when we're having the discussion on these topics, because we need to hear your input as to what made you post that topic. What were you thinking about at the time? But other than that, shout out to KWAZ Radio and everyone on it. You guys check out everyone else. Check out Brother Forecast's book on Amazon, The History of Racism, A Guide to White Supremacy by one Mr. White. You will find it on Amazon if you put that in. Support that brother. There's a Kindle version, there's a hardcover. I got the hardcover version. I'll interview him about it in the coming weeks. But until next time,
before we go, Coco,
Yeah.
I want to remind the brothers and sisters, Matron is doing an excellent job in her readings. If y'all take an hour out of the day when y'all don't have nothing to do, y'all sitting at your desk doing a little work or whatever, just go over to the Matron, just listen to the readings. You know, it's valuable pieces of information, history, and details our history. So brothers and sisters, don't forget to try to chime in the Matron, even if it's you go on a platform and press the like button and the subscribe button. You know, do her that favor. But if you can't listen, do her that favor. You know, I just want to remind the brothers and sisters of that.
Yeah, good reminder. I did talk about it at the top of the show. Lord of Slaughter says we need a science topic every week. Lord of Slaughter, I think you're on the Discord, actually. If you're not, join the Discord, post some topics. I'll bring them as often as I can, every week. Culture and Education says Burkina Faso and Kenya make cell phones. Okay, I stand corrected, but I was repeating something someone else said. I think the bigger point is that's 2 countries you mentioned. There's 54 in Africa. We could do it a little bit better. You guys be good until next week, 8 p.m. Saturday. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.